Hi everyone! Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The bond snapped into place with the force of a tidal wave, an invisible, intangible tremor that shook Lyra to her very core, stealing the breath from her lungs. It wasn't a physical sensation, not precisely, but a profound, undeniable shift in the very fabric of her existence, as if a missing piece of her soul had suddenly clicked into alignment, creating an undeniable crat. Resonance. One moment, she was merely Lyra Thorne, a freelance graphic designer, happily married to a kind, loving human named Ben, navigating the mundane anxieties of a looming client deadline and the faint scent of dinner wafting from their cozy kitchen. The next, an ancient, primal recognition slammed into her, vibrant and insistent, pulling at a part of her she hadn't even known existed, awakening a dormant instinct that hummed beneath her skin with an almost terrifying intensity. The world, previously so familiar and ordered, tilted violently on its axis, throwing her into a dizzying maelstrom of confusion and a profound sense of wrongness. She stood frozen in the middle of their sun-drenched living room, a half-folded laundry basket clutched forgotten in her hand, the soft scent of fabric softener mingling incongruously with the sudden, intoxicating aroma that now filled her senses. It was an earthy scent, wild and untamed, like ancient forests after a rainstorm, mingled with something uniquely masculine, a hint of spice and raw power that coiled in her gut. It was alien, yet utterly, undeniably familiar, a scent that resonated with a forgotten corner of her being, a part that now clamored for recognition, for understanding. Ben, bless his oblivious heart, called out from the kitchen, his voice warm and steady. "Honey, you okay? The lasagna's almost ready." His normalcy, his utter lack of awareness of the tectonic shift that had just occurred within her, was both a comfort and a sharp, painful contrast to the dizzying chaos that now threatened to overwhelm her. Lyra forced herself to breathe, to push down the rising tide of panic that threatened to engulf her. She was Lyra Thorne, wife to Ben, human. This couldn't be happening. She was 32 years old, pragmatic, grounded, a woman who believed in logic and reason, not in ancient mystical bonds. Her life was ordinary, beautifully, comfortably ordinary. They had met 5 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue, a casual encounter that had blossomed into a steady, comforting love. Ben, with his warm, crinkling eyes and gentle laugh, was her anchor, her safe harbor. He was a history teacher, passionate about forgotten empires and ancient texts, utterly absorbed in the human world, blissfully unaware of the hidden currents that flowed beneath its surface. And she, Lyra, had been content, deeply, profoundly content in that world, in that love, until now. The bond pulsed within her, a relentless drumbeat in her veins, pulling her in a direction she didn't understand, towards something she couldn't name. It was like an invisible tether, tugging at her very soul, demanding acknowledgement, demanding surrender. She stumbled towards the nearest window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass, desperate for a breath of fresh air, for anything to ground her. Outside, the familiar suburban street stretched, lined with neat houses and manicured lawns, children's laughter echoing faintly from a distant park. Everything looked the same. But she knew, with a chilling certainty, that nothing was the same. She wasn't the same. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper touched the edges of her mind, a powerful, commanding voice that seemed to resonate directly in her thoughts, bypassing her ears entirely. Mate. The single word, deep and resonant, thrummed with a primal authority, stirring something equally primal within her, a responsive tremor that she fought desperately to suppress. No? This was madness. She was hallucinating. The stress of the upcoming client presentation, the late nights, the endless coffee that had to be it. But deep down, a cold, unwavering certainty settled in her gut, a truth too profound to deny. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. And it was terrifying. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the insistent pull, the intoxicating scent, the commanding whisper. When she opened them again, Ben was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, a wooden spoon still in his hand, a look of gentle concern on his face. Hey, you really are zoning out. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Lyra forced a shaky smile, her hand still trembling slightly as she set the laundry basket down with a clatter. Yeah, just thinking about a design concept. Got a bit lost in my head. The lie felt heavy on her tongue, an unfamiliar taste. She hated lying to Ben. He was so transparent, so honest, so utterly deserving of the truth. But how could she possibly tell him this? How could she explain something she herself couldn't comprehend? Something that defied all logic, all their shared reality. Over dinner, as Ben enthusiastically recounted a particularly fascinating detail about the Roman Empire, Lyra picked at her lasagna, her appetite strangely diminished. Her senses felt heightened, unnaturally sharp. She could hear the faint scuttling of a mouse in the wall, the distant bark of a dog 2 blocks away, the individual rustle of leaves outside their window, sounds she had never noticed before. The earthy, wild scent from earlier, though fainter indoors, still clung to her, a phantom presence, an insistent memory of that overwhelming recognition. That night, sleep offered no escape. Every time she closed her eyes, the commanding whisper echoed in her mind, mate. The sensation of the bond, a subtle yet insistent tug, persisted, a constant, undeniable awareness of something powerful and vital existing beyond her immediate world, something inherently linked to her. She tossed and turned, desperate to find a comfortable position, to quiet the tumultuous storm within her. Ben, a heavy sleeper, lay beside her, his breathing slow and even, a comforting weight that usually brought her peace. Tonight, however, his very normalcy felt like a stark, painful reminder of the chasm that had suddenly opened between their 2 worlds. She eventually slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and padded silently to the living room window. The moon, a full luminous orb, hung high in the inky sky, bathing the suburban landscape in an ethereal silver light. It felt impossibly bright, almost aggressive in its intensity, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt an inexplicable pull towards it, a yearning deep in her bones, a wildness she couldn't comprehend. She saw it then, moving with impossible grace at the very edge of their backyard, just beyond the privacy fence, in the shadow of the old oak tree. A wolf. It was immense, its fur a rich, dark charcoal that seemed to absorb the moonlight, making it almost invisible against the deeper shadows. Its eyes, even from this distance, seemed to glow with an intense amber light fixed directly on her. A profound, ancient intelligence burned in those depths, a knowing that transcended the animal. It stood perfectly still, a silent, powerful sentinel, watching her with an unwavering intensity that made her skin prickle, a chill that had nothing to do with the cool night air. The wild, earthy scent, stronger now, permeated the night, carrying on the faint breeze that rustled the leaves of the oak. It was the same scent that had overwhelmed her earlier. It was the source of the bond. Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through the confusion. This wasn't a hallucination. This wasn't stress. This was real. And it was far more profound, far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The wolf, or whatever it was waiting for her. Suddenly, the silent, powerful being let out a low, mournful howl, a sound that resonated deep in Lyra's very marrow, a cry of primal longing that echoed her own newfound, terrifying connection. It wasn't a threat, but a lament, a yearning. It was a sound of profound recognition, of a bond acknowledged, of a destiny proclaimed. It spoke of deep, ancient ties, of a connection that transcended species, transcended worlds. It was the sound of a mate calling. Then, with a final, lingering look that seemed to penetrate her very soul, the enormous wolf turned and melted silently back into the shadows of the woods behind their house, disappearing as if it had never been there. The air, though still carrying the faint, wild scent, felt suddenly empty, hollowed out by its departure. Lyra stood there for a long time, shivering, long after the wolf had vanished, the cold glass against her forehead. The image of those glowing amber eyes burned into her mind. She was Lyra Thorne, wife to Ben. Human. But something else now, too. Something wild, something ancient, something irrevocably tied to the creature that had just watched her from the shadows. The bond, that undeniable, relentless tug, had tightened. She was the Alpha's fated mate, and she was already married to a human. The words echoed in her mind, a profound, terrifying truth that threatened to tear her perfectly constructed life apart. Her heart, once so settled and content, was now irrevocably torn, caught between the safe, loving life she had built and a wild, undeniable destiny that was hurtling towards her, whether she was ready or not. The quiet suburban night had become a battleground, and Lyra was caught in the crossfire, utterly unprepared for the war that was about to rage for her very soul. The following days were a blur of heightened anxiety and a profound sense of unreality. Lyra moved through her familiar routines as if in a trance, her external actions perfectly mimicking normalcy, while internally a tumultuous storm raged. Then, sensing her distraction, though attributing it to work stress, was extra solicitous, bringing her cups of tea, offering back rubs, and listening patiently as she feigned explanations for her frequent zoning out. Each act of his innocent kindness, each gesture of his unassuming love, twisted a fresh knife in her gut. How could she possibly explain what had happened? How could she shatter his carefully ordered world with a truth so outlandish, so beyond the realm of human comprehension, that it sounded like the plot of a fantastical novel? The thought of his bewildered, hurt expression, his gentle eyes clouded with disbelief and pain, was unbearable. She had built her life with him, brick by honest, loving brick, and now an ancient, mystical force threatened to demolish it all, without warning, without mercy. The bond, that relentless, insistent tug, became a constant companion, a phantom limb that throbbed with an unseen energy. It wasn't always overwhelming, but it was always there, a subtle current beneath the surface of her awareness. A faint, almost imperceptible hum that resonated deep within her, connecting her to something vast and powerful, something wild and untamed. It was a constant reminder of the enormous, dark wolf with glowing amber eyes, the one that haunted her dreams and her waking thoughts. She found herself subconsciously scanning the tree line at the edge of their backyard, a primal urge to look, to confirm, to perhaps even deny what she knew to be true. There were no more sightings, no more haunting howls, but the pervasive sense of being watched, of being known, remained, a chilling constant in her days. She tried to rationalize it away. Stress, exhaustion, a vivid dream. But the visceral certainty, the primal recognition she had felt, defied all logical explanations. Her body remembered the profound shift, the sudden awakening of senses she hadn't known she possessed, the intoxicating scent that had permeated her very being. This was real. And it was only a matter of time before he came for her. The he in her mind was formless, yet imbued with an immense power, a commanding presence that sent both shivers of fear and an undeniable, unsettling thrill through her. It was the Alpha. The thought pulsed through her mind with a terrifying clarity, a name she had somehow instinctively known the moment the bond had snapped into place. He wanted her, needed her, would do anything to claim her. But she was married. To Ben. To a human. The internal conflict was a relentless, agonizing war, tearing at the very fabric of her soul, fraying her nerves to the point of breaking. One afternoon, while working on a complex digital campaign for a new tech startup, the insistent tug of the bond intensified, becoming almost unbearable, a physical ache in her chest. A wave of overwhelming heat washed over her, flushing her skin, followed by a sudden dizzying sense of disorientation. The scent, that wild primal musk, flared into her awareness with an alarming intensity, as if the source were suddenly very, very close. Lyra gasped, clutching her desk, her knuckles white. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to regain her composure, to push the overwhelming sensations away. But it was too strong. When she opened her eyes, a man was standing in her living room. He stood by the fireplace, radiating an aura of raw, untamed power that filled the relatively small space, making it feel impossibly cramped, impossibly charged. He was tall, powerfully built, with broad shoulders that strained the fabric of his dark, impeccably tailored suit, a stark contrast to the wildness that shimmered beneath his composed exterior. His hair was the color of midnight, falling in a controlled disarray around a face that was strikingly handsome, sculpted with sharp, almost chiseled angles. But it was his eyes that truly captured her, that held her in an unbreakable grip, pulling her into their depths. They were the exact shade of amber she had seen in the wolf's eyes, burning with the same intense, ancient intelligence, the same unwavering certainty. Recognition slammed into her, cold and absolute. This was him. This was the Alpha. A silent, predatory stillness emanated from him, a sense of controlled power that vibrated in the air around him, a quiet, almost unnerving intensity. He was not just a man. He was something more, something ancient and wild, something that commanded deference. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, desperate bird trapped in a cage. Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, mesmerized and terrified by his sudden, impossible appearance. How had he gotten in? There had been no sound, no warning. His gaze swept over her, a deep, possessive intensity in their amber depths that made her feel utterly exposed, completely known. He took a slow, deliberate step towards her, and the scent, that wild, primal musk, intensified, wrapping around her, claiming her senses, filling her lungs, drowning out everything else. "Lyra," he said, his voice a low, resonant rumble, precisely the same commanding whisper she had heard in her mind. It was a voice that resonated deep in her bones, vibrating through her very cells, stirring an instinctual response she couldn't suppress, a primal recognition that whispered, "Mine." Finally. His voice, deep and commanding, was a direct assault on her carefully constructed world, shattering the illusion of normalcy into a million pieces. It was undeniable. He was the wolf, the alpha, and he was here, in her living room. Who are you?" Lyra managed to stammer, her voice barely a whisper, thick with fear and a profound, unsettling awe. Her mind raced, desperately trying to construct a logical explanation, to rationalize his impossible presence, but found none. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to deny this absurd, terrifying reality. Yet another, deeper instinct held her rooted to the spot, drawn by an irresistible, terrifying magnetism. He took another step, closing the distance between them, his presence filling the room, dominating her senses. The air thickened, charged with an almost visible energy that pressed down on her, stealing her breath. "My name is Kaelen," he stated, his voice still low, yet laced with an undeniable authority, a quiet power that brooked no argument. "I am the alpha of the Northern Ridge Pack, and you, Lyra Thorne, are my fated mate." The words, spoken aloud, carried an ancient weight, a profound, undeniable truth that settled in her bones. Fated mate. The term vibrated with destiny, with a power that transcended choice, transcended human will. Lyra felt a wave of dizzying disorientation wash over her. Her world was crumbling around her, reduced to dust by the sheer, overwhelming force of his presence, the undeniable truth of his words. "No," she whispered, shaking her head, a desperate, futile denial. "No, you're wrong. I'm married. I'm married to a human. This can't be." Her voice rose with each word, a desperate plea for normalcy, for a return to the safe, ordinary life that was now slipping rapidly through her fingers. Kaelen's amber eyes, intense and unwavering, held hers, a profound, almost sorrowful understanding in their depths, yet an unshakable determination. "The bond doesn't lie, Lyra. It never does. It's snapped into place for a reason. You are mine. You always have been, even if you didn't know it. Even if you were living a life separate from this truth. And I will claim what is mine." His voice was not threatening, not overtly aggressive, but imbued with an absolute certainty. A quiet, unyielding power that brooked no argument, no defiance. It was a statement of fact, a declaration of an ancient, unavoidable destiny. He took another step, and then another, until he was standing directly in front of her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, the raw power that hummed just beneath his skin, the intoxicating scent wrapping around her, drawing her in. He reached out, slowly, deliberately, his large hand gently cupping her jaw, his thumb stroking her cheek with a surprising, tender reverence that sent a shiver of unexpected pleasure through her, silencing the frantic clamor of fear in her mind. "I can feel your confusion," Kaelen murmured, his voice softer now, almost a caress, yet still imbued with that undeniable, commanding resonance. "Your fear, your conflict. But I also feel the pull, Lyra, the undeniable connection between us. You feel it too, don't you? It's resonating within you, calling to the wildness you didn't know you possessed." His amber eyes searched hers, probing, seeing beyond her fear, beyond her human confusion, directly into the awakened depths of her soul. You are more than just a human, Lyra. You are one of us, or you are meant to be. The bond chose you, and it doesn't choose lightly. His words, spoken with such quiet conviction, struck a chord deep within her, a strange, undeniable echo. One of us, she whispered, her voice barely audible, caught between disbelief and a dawning, terrifying possibility. She had always felt different, a sense of restlessness, a quiet yearning for something she couldn't quite name, a longing for a connection beyond the core, superficiality of daily life, a desire for something wild and untamed that she had always suppressed, dismissed as a fleeting fancy. Could it be true? Could she truly be one of them? You are a dormant wolf, Kaelen explained, his thumb stroking her cheek again, a mesmerizing, comforting rhythm. A rare occurrence, but not unheard of. Sometimes, for generations, a family line will carry the dormant gene. It only awakens when the true mate, an alpha, appears, when the bond is truly formed. You felt the shift, didn't you? The primal awakening. That was your wolf stirring, recognizing its true alpha, recognizing its destiny. The explanation, however fantastical, resonated with an undeniable truth, a profound sense of rightness that settled deep in her bones, explaining the inexplicable. It made a horrifying, terrifying, yet strangely comforting kind of sense. She had felt a shift, a profound, undeniable awakening. Her heightened senses, the inexplicable pull to the moon, the wildness she felt stirring within her, it all fit. She was a werewolf, or rather, she was becoming one. Her entire identity, her entire understanding of herself, was being rewritten in a single, devastating moment. And then, the sound of the front door opening, the familiar jingle of keys, pulled Lyra brutally back to the harsh, undeniable reality of her human life. "Honey, I'm home," Ben's cheerful voice called out from the hallway, utterly oblivious, a stark, painful contrast to the ancient, powerful presence that now filled their living room. Kaelen's head snapped towards the sound, his eyes hardening, losing their brief, tender warmth, replaced by a cold, possessive glint. A low, almost imperceptible growl rumbled in his chest, a primal warning, a sound of profound territoriality. The scent in the room flared again, sharp and aggressive, radiating from him in potent waves. He was an alpha, and he was standing in the home of his fated mate, who was already married to another man. A human. The tension in the room became unbearable, thick and suffocating, vibrating with an imminent, terrifying collision of worlds. Lyra felt a surge of pure, unadulterated panic, a desperate need to shield Ben, to protect him from the inevitable, catastrophic clash. "Ben!" she gasped, her voice choked with a desperate urgency. "Don't come in here." But it was too late. Ben rounded the corner into the living room, a grocery bag slung over his shoulder, a bright, loving smile on his face, ready to greet his wife. His smile faltered, then vanished completely as his gaze landed on Kaelen, standing impossibly close to Lyra, his hand still gently cupping her jaw, his amber eyes burning with a dangerous, possessive intensity. Ben's brow furrowed in confusion, then in a dawning, bewildered alarm. His eyes, kind and gentle, registered the stranger, the strange tension in the air, the unsettling proximity, and then finally, the undeniable, raw power emanating from Kaelen. "Lyra? Who is this?" Ben asked, his voice strained, a raw edge of confusion and hurt in his tone. The grocery bag slipped from his grasp, spilling apples and a carton of milk onto the polished hardwood floor, scattering across the silent tension. His kind eyes, usually so full of warmth and understanding, were now clouded with shock, fear, and a terrifying, heartbreaking flicker of betrayal. Kaelen's gaze remained fixed on Ben, his expression utterly devoid of warmth, a cold, predatory assessment in his amber depths. His body language was subtle, yet unequivocally dominant, radiating a silent, formidable threat that Ben, even as a human, instinctively recoiled from. Lyra watched in horror as the two men stood separated by an invisible chasm, one representing her comfortable, human past, the other, her wild, undeniable, terrifying future. The air crackled with unspoken tension, a silent, volatile standoff that threatened to explode at any moment. Her heart throbbed, a drumbeat of despair, as she realized that the two halves of her life, once so neatly separated, were now about to collide with devastating, irreparable force. And she was caught directly in the middle, utterly powerless to prevent the inevitable destruction. The silence that followed Ben's bewildered question was a heavy, suffocating blanket, punctuated only by the soft thud of a rolling apple across the polished floor. Lyra felt like a trapped animal, caught between two formidable forces, her heart hammering against her ribs with such ferocity she feared it might burst. Kaelen's posture was a coiled spring, radiating a silent, dangerous intensity that made Ben, visibly, instinctively, recoil. Ben, for his part, was a picture of bewildered vulnerability, his eyes darting between Lyra and Kaelen, trying desperately to make sense of the impossible tableau unfolding in his living room. The sweet smell of spilled milk mingled with the primal, wild scent emanating from Kaelen, creating a nauseating cocktail that assaulted Lyra's already frayed senses. "Ben, I can explain," Lyra finally managed to croak, her voice thin and reedy, utterly unconvincing even to her own ears. But how could she explain? How could she articulate a truth so fantastical, so utterly beyond the realm of his experience? The words felt hollow, meaningless, utterly inadequate to bridge the chasm that had just opened between them. Kaelen, however, stepped forward, his gaze never leaving Ben's, an almost predatory focus in his amber eyes. He radiated an aura of quiet authority, a silent, undeniable power that seemed to command immediate deference, even from a confused, unsuspecting human. "There is nothing to explain to him, Lyra," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, resonant rumble, utterly devoid of warmth, laced with an unsettling possessiveness. "He is irrelevant. He is not your mate. You belong with me. This is where your destiny lies." His words, blunt and uncompromising, landed like physical blows, striking at the very core of Lyra's carefully constructed world. Ben's eyes widened, a dawning horror mixing with profound hurt. He was a kind man, gentle and unassuming, utterly unprepared for such raw, unadulterated confrontation. "Mate? Destiny? What are you talking about?" Ben demanded, his voice rising, a tremor of fear and anger now lacing his tone. He looked at Lyra, a desperate plea in his eyes. "Lyra, who is this man? What is going on?" Lyra's gaze flickered between the two men, her heart tearing into two distinct, bleeding halves. One was the man she had built a life with, the man who knew her fears and her dreams, the man who had loved her unconditionally. The other was the manifestation of a primal, undeniable truth, a powerful force of destiny that had shattered her comfortable reality. A being who claimed her with an ancient, terrifying certainty. "Ben, please," Lyra pleaded, her voice choked with tears, a desperate, futile attempt to de-escalate the volatile situation, to somehow protect him from a truth that would surely destroy him. It's complicated. Just, please. Kaelen's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible sneer, a flash of pure, untamed wolf in his eyes. He clearly had no patience for human sentimentality, no tolerance for the complexities of Lyra's double life. Complicated, he scoffed, his voice laced with a cold disdain that sent a shiver down Lyra's spine. The only thing complicated here, Lyra, is your misguided attempt to defy destiny. This human, he gestured dismissively at Ben, is a temporary distraction, a mistake that must be rectified, now. With a sudden, fluid movement that was too fast for Ben's human eyes to follow, Kaelen moved. He didn't touch Ben, didn't overtly threaten him, but his presence, his sheer, overwhelming power, radiated outwards, a silent, formidable declaration. Ben stumbled back, his face paling, a look of primal fear in his eyes, his breath catching in his throat. He was a kind, gentle soul, a lover of books and history, utterly outmatched, utterly unprepared for the sheer, raw power emanating from the man who stood before him. He instinctively understood, without conscious thought, that he was in the presence of something ancient, something dangerous, something utterly beyond his comprehension. "Get out," Ben whispered, his voice trembling, yet imbued with a surprising, fragile defiance, a desperate attempt to protect his home, his wife. "Get out of my house." Kaelen's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint in their amber depths. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest, a warning that made the very air vibrate, a sound of ancient impatience. It was a clear demonstration of his power, a silent, terrifying promise of what would happen if Ben continued to defy him. "You have no claim here, human," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, guttural growl, stripped of its earlier, deceptive softness, revealing the raw, untamed alpha within. "She is my mate, and I am here to claim her." Lyra's heart leaped into her throat. This was it. The confrontation she had dreaded. The moment her two worlds would collide, irrevocably, catastrophically. She had to choose. She had to act. "No!" Lyra cried out, stepping forward, instinctively placing herself between Kaelen and Ben, her arms spread wide in a desperate protective gesture. "You will not hurt him. He has done nothing wrong. He knows nothing of your world, your bond. You have no right to come into my home and make demands." Her voice, though trembling, gained a surprising strength, a fierce protectiveness rising within her, overriding her fear. Kaelen's gaze, momentarily surprised by her defiance, softened almost imperceptibly as it landed on her, a flicker of something akin to admiration in his amber eyes, quickly replaced by a possessive intensity. "He stands between us, Lyra. He is an obstacle, a human obstacle." His voice was a warning, a statement of immutable fact. "He is my husband," Lyra shot back, her voice ringing with a desperate conviction, tears now streaming freely down her face, the raw pain of her torn loyalties finally breaking through. "My husband, the man I love. You can't just waltz in here and demand I leave him, leave my life. This isn't fair." "Fairness is a human construct, Lyra," Kaelen stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "Cold, hard truth. Destiny is not. The bond is absolute. It transcends human vows, human affections. It is primal. It is law. It binds us, Lyra. You felt it. Don't deny it. Your wolf calls to mine." Lyra felt the internal pull, that undeniable resonance, thrumming beneath her skin, a desperate counterpoint to the logical human part of her that clung to Ben, to the life they had built. She was tearing apart, piece by agonizing piece. I will not go with you, Lyra declared, her voice firmer now, a resolve hardening in her eyes, even as her heart ached with impossible choices. Not like this. Not if it means destroying everything I hold dear. Everything I built with Ben. You may be my fated mate, but I choose him. I choose my husband. I choose my life. Kaelen's expression darkened, his jaw tightening, the predatory glint returning to his amber eyes with an alarming intensity. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with a palpable tension, a silent threat. You think you have a choice, Lyra? He growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. The bond does not allow for choice. It demands. And you will comply, one way or another. He took another step towards them, his powerful presence dominating the small living room, making it feel suffocatingly small. Lyra braced herself, ready to face whatever came next, a fierce, desperate protectiveness for Ben overriding all fear. She would not let him hurt Ben. Not now, not ever. Before Kaelen could take another step, before the tension could finally snap, a loud, insistent knock echoed through the front door, sharp and unexpected, slicing through the heavy silence like a knife. All three heads snapped towards the sound. Kaelen's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance and caution crossing his face. Ben, still pale and trembling, looked bewildered, momentarily distracted from the immediate threat. Lyra, seizing the unexpected reprieve, the precious fleeting moment of distraction, spun towards the door. "Who is that?" she whispered, her mind racing, desperate for any escape, any interruption. Kaelen, however, turned his back to the door, his gaze fixed once again on Lyra, his eyes burning with an undeniable, fierce possessiveness. "It doesn't matter," he stated, his voice low and dangerous. "No one will interfere with what is ours." He took another step towards her, determined to finish what he had started, to claim his mate, regardless of the unexpected interruption. But the knocking intensified, now accompanied by a sharp, insistent male voice calling out, "Lyra? Ben? Everything all right in there?" We heard a bit of a commotion. It was Mr. Henderson, their next-door neighbor, a retired police officer with an overly keen sense of civic duty and a penchant for sticking his nose into other people's business. He was a busybody, a mild annoyance on any other day. Today he was a miracle, a deus ex machina sent from the heavens. Kaelen paused, his movements momentarily arrested, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. He was an alpha, used to absolute command, absolute privacy. This human interference was clearly an unwelcome, irritating complication. "Lyra, open the door," Mr. Henderson called out again, his voice now tinged with genuine concern, having clearly heard the commotion, sensing something was amiss. Lyra looked at Kaelen, a silent plea in her eyes. This was her chance. Her one fleeting opportunity to introduce an external variable, a human element that might force him to retreat, to reconsider, to at least pause his terrifying claim. Kaelen, seeing the desperate plea in her eyes, the flicker of hope, finally sighed, a sound of profound annoyance, a wolf's frustrated huff. His gaze lingered on her for a long moment, a silent message passing between them, a warning, a promise. Then, with a curt nod, a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture, he indicated she could open the door. It was a temporary reprieve, she knew, not a surrender. But it was a reprieve nonetheless, a precious few moments of borrowed time. Lyra rushed to the door, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the locks, her mind racing, desperate to appear normal, to present a facade of domestic tranquility, to somehow explain away the chaos that had just erupted in her living room. When she finally pulled it open, Mr. Henderson stood on her porch, his brow furrowed with concern, his eyes immediately sweeping past her into the living room, where Kaelen still stood, a dark, imposing figure, radiating an aura of barely controlled power, utterly out of place in their suburban home. Ben stood rooted to the spot, pale and shaken, the spilled groceries a stark, chaotic mess at his feet, his gaze fixed on Kaelen, a desperate, confused look on his face. "Lyra, is everything all right?" Mr. Henderson asked, his eyes narrowing slightly as they landed on Kaelen, a flicker of suspicion, of trained police instinct coming to the forefront. "Who is this gentleman?" His gaze then flickered to Ben, to the spilled groceries, to the palpable tension in the air. His suspicion deepened. "Yes, Mr. Henderson, everything is perfectly fine," Lyra said, her voice surprisingly steady, her trained PR instincts kicking in, desperately attempting to project an image of calm, of control, despite the sigh. "Internal storm." She forced a bright, strained smile. "Just a little domestic disagreement. My cousin, Kaelen, just dropped by unexpectedly from out of town, and we were just having a lively discussion, and Ben, bless his heart, just startled us. He's a bit clumsy sometimes." She gestured vaguely at the spilled groceries, trying to inject a note of everyday normalcy into the utterly abnormal situation. The lie felt like sandpaper in her throat, a betrayal of everything she valued. But it was a necessary shield, a desperate attempt to buy time. Kaelen's expression remained utterly unreadable, a perfectly maintained mask, but Lyra felt a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of amusement pass through their bond, a silent acknowledgement of her quick thinking, of her ability to spin a plausible if utterly absurd story. He played along, his voice smooth and urbane, utterly convincing as he offered a polite, distant nod to Mr. Henderson. "Indeed, family matters. We can be rather passionate." His gaze flickered to Lyra, a hint of something complex, something unreadable in his amber eyes, acknowledging her performance, her ingenuity. Mr. Henderson, though still clearly suspicious, seemed mollified by Lyra's quick, seemingly plausible explanation and the perfectly composed, if intimidating, demeanor of the cousin. He mumbled something about just checking in and, with a final, lingering, scrutinizing glance, retreated, leaving Lyra and Ben once again alone with the formidable Alpha. The front door clicked shut, sealing them back into their private, terrifying arena. The flimsy, temporary facade had held, but Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that it wouldn't last. She had bought them mere moments, a brief, fragile reprieve. The wolf had seen Ben. He had staked his claim, and she was standing directly in the crosshairs of an ancient, undeniable destiny that was hurtling towards her, threatening to consume her, tearing her heart into two irreconcilable pieces. The real battle, she knew, was only just beginning, and she had no idea how she was going to survive it, how she was going to protect the man she loved from the primal, unyielding force that now demanded her, body and soul. The tension in the room remained, thick and suffocating, a silent promise of the inevitable storm. Ben stared at Lyra, his face a canvas of disbelief and hurt. The confusion in his eyes slowly, agonizingly, gave way to a deeper, more profound pain. He looked from her to the imposing figure of Kaelen and back again, as if searching for a missing piece of a puzzle he couldn't comprehend. The apples lay scattered on the floor, a mundane detail in a suddenly fantastical nightmare. "Cousin?" Ben's voice was barely a whisper, thick with accusation. a tremor of betrayal running through it. "Lyra, what is going on? Who is this man really? And why was his hand on your face?" His gaze sharpened, landing on Kaelen's hand, which still bore the faint trace of Lyra's jawline, a silent, damning testament to their earlier intimacy. "And what did he mean, mate?" Lyra felt her carefully constructed facade crumbling, shattering into tiny, irreparable pieces. The lie to Mr. Henderson had bought her moments, but it couldn't withstand Ben's wounded gaze, his raw, aching questions. She couldn't, wouldn't, lie to him anymore. The truth, however devastating, had to come out. Before Lyra could speak, Kaelen moved. He stepped away from Lyra, closing the small distance to Ben with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural, too silent, too swift. His amber eyes, burning with an intense, unyielding light, locked onto Ben's, dominating his vision. "She is mine," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, guttural growl that bypassed conscious thought, a primal sound of ownership that seemed to vibrate directly in Ben's very bones. It was a sound designed to instill fear, to establish dominance, to strip away all defiance. "She is my fated mate, a bond that existed before your fleeting human vows, before your petty affections. It is a bond of destiny, of blood, of ancient law." Ben stumbled back, a gasp escaping his lips, his eyes wide with a profound terror as Kaelen's raw, untamed power slammed into him. He fell heavily against the wall, rattling a framed photograph of their wedding day, his face ashen, stripped of all color. He didn't understand the words, not fully, but the predatory force behind them, the sheer, undeniable power emanating from Kaelen, was unmistakable, a primal threat that resonated deep in his human brain. Instincts. He looked at Lyra, a desperate, confused plea in his eyes, as if begging her to confirm that this was all a terrible, cruel joke, a waking nightmare from which he desperately needed to wake. "Ben, he's a wolf," Lyra choked out, the words tasting like ash in her mouth, the full absurd reality of her statement hanging heavy in the charged air. Not a wolf like in the zoo. A werewolf. And I'm supposed to be one too. A dormant one. The bond. It awoke something in me. I felt it. Everything he says. It's real." The confession, raw and painful, tore at her soul, ripping apart the life they had so carefully, so lovingly built. Ben stared at her, his lips parting, but no sound emerged. Disbelief warred with terror, his mind struggling to reconcile the woman he loved with the impossible, monstrous truth she had just confessed. The gentle history teacher, grounded in the tangible facts of the past, was utterly overwhelmed by the sudden intrusion of ancient, terrifying myth into his perfectly rational world. Kaelen, seeing Ben's utter incapacitation, the human's obvious defeat, allowed a flicker of grim satisfaction to cross his face. He stepped closer to Lyra, his gaze softening, shifting from the harsh alpha to the possessive mate. "See, Lyra," he murmured, his voice now a low, intimate rumble, directed only at her, as if Ben had ceased to exist. "He cannot comprehend. He cannot protect you. He cannot offer you the life you are destined for. A human cannot stand against what is meant to be." He reached for her, his large hand gently, possessively, cupping her jaw once more, his thumb stroking her cheek with a tender reverence that belied the stark brutality of his earlier words, a gesture of profound claim. But Lyra flinched away from his touch, a sudden, desperate surge of defiance, of loyalty to Ben, overriding the undeniable pull she felt towards Kaelen. Her heart was a battlefield, torn between primal instinct and profound human love. "No," she cried out, her voice raw with anguish. "Don't you dare dismiss him. Don't you dare say he can't protect me. He has protected me every single day of our lives together. He loves me, and that love is more real than any ancient bond you claim." Her voice cracked, tears streaming down her face, fueled by a mixture of despair and a fierce protective love for Ben. Kaelen's expression darkened, his jaw clenching. He respected strength, and Lyra's defiance, however misguided in his view, was a demonstration of immense courage. Yet, her refusal to acknowledge their undeniable bond, her stubborn clinging to a human, was an infuriating challenge to his authority, to his very nature as an alpha. "You speak of love," he growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "But what of instinct, Lyra? What of the part of you that answers to me? The part that hums with recognition? The part that craves the wild, the pack, the moon? Your wolf is awakening, Lyra, and it will not be denied. It will demand its place. It will demand its alpha." As if on cue, a faint tremor ran through Lyra's body, a subtle, unfamiliar hum vibrating beneath her skin. A strange heat bloomed in her chest, spreading rapidly through her limbs, a tingling sensation, almost like her muscles were tightening, preparing for something. Her senses sharpened even further, the scent of Ben's familiar laundry detergent suddenly cloying, overwhelmed by the potent, intoxicating musk emanating from Kaelen. She could hear the frantic beat of Ben's heart against the wall, the faint drip of a leaky faucet in the bathroom, the almost imperceptible rustle of dust motes dancing in a beam of sunlight. Her body was responding to Kaelen's words, to his presence, to the undeniable truth of her awakening wolf, a traitorous confirmation of his claims. "I don't know what this is," Lyra whispered, her voice choked. "That I won't abandon him. I won't abandon the life I chose." She looked at Ben, her eyes filled with an agonizing despair. "Ben, I swear, I love you. This doesn't change that." Ben, slowly, painfully, pushed himself away from the wall. The fear in his eyes was still palpable, but now a flicker of resolute determination, a desperate, almost foolish courage, began to emerge. He was a human, yes, but he was not without his own quiet strength, his own deep-seated loyalties. "Lyra," he said, his voice stronger now, though still trembling. "I don't understand any of this. It sounds like something out of a myth. But I know you. And I know what we have. If this is real, if this is some kind of a test, then we face it together, whatever it is. I'm not letting you go." His gaze, though still wary, shifted to Kaelen, a glimmer of fierce, protective defiance in their depths. A silent challenge to the Alpha's absolute claim. A flicker of something unreadable, a complex mix of surprise and grudging respect, crossed Kaelen's face. He had clearly underestimated the human spirit, his unwavering devotion. The raw, palpable love emanating from Ben, his desperate willingness to stand against an impossible threat, was an anomaly in Kaelen's world, a concept he, the Alpha, had likely rarely encountered outside the strict confines of his own pack. "Such defiance is admirable, human," Kaelen stated, his voice now a low, chilling purr, dangerous in its quiet intensity, devoid of any warmth, but ultimately futile. "The moon calls, Lyra. Your true nature will demand its place. And when it does, your human ties will seem flimsy, insignificant. Your human mate will be a distant memory." With a sudden, almost imperceptible shift in the air, Kaelen moved again. He didn't touch Lyra, but his powerful form seemed to engulf her, his presence utterly dominating her senses. A wave of overwhelming heat, a powerful, almost intoxicating surge of raw energy washed over her, making her dizzy. The world spun, her vision blurred, filled with shimmering lights and shifting shadows. The scent of wildness, of Kaelen, of her own awakening wolf, exploded in her head, drowning out everything else. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the overwhelming sensation receded. Lyra blinked, disoriented, her head swimming. Kaelen was no longer standing directly in front of her. He was by the window, his back to them, his posture rigid, radiating a fierce, almost unbearable intensity. The air still vibrated with the aftershocks of his power, a lingering hum that settled in her bones. He turned slowly, his amber eyes burning with a fierce possessive fire, fixed on Lyra. "You have until the next full moon, Lyra," he stated, his voice a low, resonant pronouncement, a decree that carried the weight of ancient law, of unbreakable destiny. 3 weeks. That is all the time I will allow you to reconcile with your true nature, to sever your human ties. When the moon is full, you will come to me, to my pack, to your rightful place, or I will come for you, and when I do, there will be no more choices, no more negotiations, only claiming, and there will be no protecting this human then." His gaze flickered to Ben, a silent, chilling promise of consequences. "Do you understand, fated mate?" Lyra stared at him, unable to speak, unable to move, frozen in the grip of a profound terror, a chilling despair. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to abandon her life, to choose between the man she loved and a destiny she couldn't outrun. 3 weeks until the world as she knew it, as she had built it, irrevocably shattered. With a final, lingering look that was both a promise and a terrifying threat, Kaelen turned and, with an impossible fluidity, seemed to melt into the shadows, disappearing from their living room as silently and inexplicably as he had arrived. The front door remained locked, the windows unbroken. Yet he was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of wildness and the heavy, suffocating silence of an impossible truth. Then slumped to the floor, amidst the scattered apples and milk, his face buried in his hands. Trembling uncontrollably, he was breathing heavily, ragged gasps escaping his lips, as if he had just run a marathon. He was a human, thrust violently into a world of primal power and ancient myths, and the shock rallying had clearly overwhelmed him. Lyra, her own body still trembling, sank to her knees beside him, wrapping her arms around his shaking shoulders, pulling him close, rocking him gently. His familiar warmth, his human fragility, was a comforting anchor and curd. The maelstrom of her new, terrifying reality. "Ben," she whispered, her voice thick with tears, tears of fear, of love, of impossible choices. "I am so sorry. I swear, I never knew. I never would have put you through this." Ben finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot, filled with a mixture of terror, confusion, and a profound, heartbreaking betrayal. "Lyra," he rasped, his voice raw, "what was that?" "What was he?" And you? Are you really a monster?" The word hung in the air, a cruel, painful echo, cutting her to the quick. Lyra flinched as if struck. "No, Ben," she whispered, tears flowing freely now, a desperate, fervent denial. "No, I'm not a monster. I'm still me. Just something else is awakening within me. something I can't control, something I never asked for. She hugged him tighter, desperate to convey the depth of her love, the unwavering strength of her human commitment. Even as her body hummed with the unsettling tremor of her awakening wolf, they sat there for a long time, on the floor of their living room, amidst the mundane chaos of spilled groceries, trying desperately to reconcile the impossible truth that had just invaded their perfectly ordinary lives. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions, with shattered dreams, with the terrifying certainty of a countdown that had just begun. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to decide between the man she loved and the ancient, primal destiny that now demanded her, body and soul. The clock was ticking. Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that the next full moon would bring not just the culmination of a cycle, but the inevitable, devastating climax of her shattered life. And she had no idea how she was going to survive it, how she was going to choose, how she was going to protect the man she loved from the primal, unyielding force that now demanded her body and soul. The tension in the room remained, thick and suffocating, a silent promise of the inevitable storm. The ensuing days were a torment of internal conflict and external pretense. Lyra and Ben moved through their lives in a haze, each glance between them laden with unspoken why-die, fears, unasked questions. Then, though deeply shaken by Kaelen's terrifying appearance, tried valiantly to be supportive, to understand. He devoured every book, every online article he could find on folklore, on myths, on the rare and fantastical, desperately searching for answers, for a shred of logic in the absurdity that had consumed their reality. He clung to the idea that there must be a scientific explanation, a psychological phenomenon, anything but the terrifying truth of werewolves and fated mates. His efforts, though heartbreakingly futile, touched Lyra deeply, a testament to his unwavering love and his desperate attempt to hold on to their shared human world. Lyra, meanwhile, found herself grappling not only with the external threat of Kaelen's ultimatum, but with the profound, unsettling changes occurring within her own body. Her senses continued to sharpen, becoming almost painfully acute. The mundane sounds of their suburban street, a distant lawnmower, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves became amplified, almost overwhelming, scents she had never noticed before. Subtle undertones of damp earth, distant rain, even the distinct individual smells of different types of trees, now filled her nostrils with an astonishing clarity. Her vision, especially at dusk, seemed to pierce through the paika, gathering gloom. Seeing details she would have missed before, her hearing, a finely tuned instrument, picked up conversations from across the street, the soft padding of a cat's paws on the sidewalk, the faint beating of a bird's wings. And then there was the physical sensation. A strange, insistent energy hummed beneath her skin, a restless tremor that surged with every passing evening. Intensified by the waxing moon, her muscles felt subtly stronger, more agile, a latent power stirring, demanding to be acknowledged, to be unleashed. The transformation was slow, subtle, yet undeniably real, a terrifying, exhilarating awakening that confirmed Kaelen's claims, pulling her inexorably towards her new, wild reality, forcing her to confront a part of herself she never knew existed. She found herself subconsciously drawn to the outdoors, to the shadowed edges of their backyard, her gaze pulled towards the dense woods that lay beyond, a primal yearning for the wilderness, for the open, untamed spaces. Their conversations became strained, punctuated by long, agonizing silences. How do you discuss fated mates and ancient pacts with someone whose reality is built on historical facts and everyday logic? Lyra tried to explain the bond, the overwhelming pull, the primal recognition, but the words felt inadequate, hollow, utterly incapable of conveying the raw, visceral truth. Ben, for his part, listened with a mixture of fear and profound sadness, his eyes shadowed with worry. He wanted to understand, but his human mind recoiled from the impossibility of it all. He could only see the threat, the man who had invaded their home and threatened to steal his wife. "There has to be another way, Lyra," Ben would often say, his voice laced with desperate hope, late at night, as they lay in bed, the distance between them feeling impossibly vast, a silent testament to the wedge Kaelen had driven. Between them. "We can fight this. We can go to the police. We can leave. Disappear. This Kaelen, he can't just take you. This isn't some ancient time. This is now. We have rights. We have choices." His voice was filled with a poignant, almost heartbreaking human optimism, a belief in the power of their love to overcome even the supernatural. Lyra would shake her head, tears silently tracking paths down her temples, soaking into her pillow. "You don't understand, Ben," she would whisper, her voice thick with despair. "He's an alpha. He's powerful. And his world, it doesn't operate by human laws. He'll find us. He'll always find us. And if I don't go willingly, he promised. He promised there would be consequences. For you, I can't risk you, Ben. I just can't." The thought of Ben, gentle, kind Ben, facing the brutal, untamed power of Kaelen's wolf, sent a cold tremor of fear through her, chilling her to the very bone. She had to protect him, even if it meant sacrificing herself, sacrificing their love, sacrificing her very soul to a destiny she didn't want. The days dwindled, each one bringing them closer to the dreaded full moon. The internal conflict escalated, an agonizing tug-of-war within Lyra's heart. Her human side, the Lyra who loved Ben, who cherished their quiet life, who valued choice and autonomy, clung desperately to the life she had built. But her awakening wolf, primal and insistent, yearned for the wild, for the pack, for the undeniable pull of its fated alpha. It was a terrifying, exhilarating pull, a sense of belonging she had never known, the deep-seated craving for a power she was only just beginning to comprehend. The line between Lyra Thorne, human, and the dormant wolf within her blurred more with each passing hour. One evening, unable to bear the suffocating tension in their home, Lyra suggested they go for a walk in the local park, a familiar, comforting ritual from their early courtship. They walked in silence for a long time, the cool evening air doing little to soothe the turmoil within her. As they reached a secluded bench beneath an ancient, sprawling oak tree, Lyra finally broke the silence, her voice trembling, but imbued with a desperate traberay. "Resolve, Ben," she began, her voice raw with emotion. "We need to talk, really talk, about this. About what happens next." Ben nodded, his gaze fixed on the darkening sky, his face etched with worry. "I'm listening, Lyra. Always. Whatever it is, we'll face it. Together." His loyalty, his unwavering love, was a balm to her aching soul, yet also a heavy burden, a painful reminder of the impossibility of her situation. I can feel it more strongly now," Lyra confessed, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking the words aloud would make them irrevocably real, solidifying her terrifying fate. The wolf within me. It's like a part of me, a deep, ancient part, is finally waking up, and it calls to him, to Kaelen. It feels undeniable, like a truth written in my very bones. She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes, a profound sorrow etched on her face. I don't know how to stop it, Ben. I don't know how to fight it. And I'm terrified of what he'll do to you if I don't go, terrified of what I might become if I do. Ben reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring, his thumb stroking her knuckles. Then we figure it out together, he said, his voice surprisingly steady, a quiet determination hardening his gaze. We don't just surrender, Lyra. We fight. For us. For our life. There has to be a way to break this bond, or to somehow pacify him, to make him see reason. There has to be a way for you to be you. The Lyra I know and love, who just happens to have wolfy tendencies. He even managed a weak attempt at a joke, trying desperately to lighten the unbearable weight of their conversation. Lyra offered a watery smile, a fleeting moment of gratitude for his unwavering support, his stubborn why. Courageous optimism. You don't understand the power, Ben, she whispered, shaking her head. He's an alpha. He commands. And the bond, it compels. It's not just about what he wants. It's about what my own awakening nature will demand. It's about a part of me that is drawn to him, to his strength, to his pack, to the wildlife. And that part, Ben, is becoming stronger every day. As she spoke, a shiver ran through her, not of fear, but of an inexplicable yearning. The moon, almost full now, had begun its slow ascent in the eastern sky, a luminous, watchful eye. And Lyra felt an almost irresistible pull towards it, a deep, resonant ache in her very soul, a call to the wild that vibrated in every cell of her being. Suddenly, a twig snapped in the shadows behind the shad oak tree, pulling them both from their intense conversation. Lyra's head snapped up, her newly heightened senses instantly picking up the faint scent of damp earth, of pine, of something else, something familiar, something wild and potent. Kaelen. He emerged from the deeper shadows beneath the tree, moving with a silent, predatory grace, his presence dominating the park, making it feel small, insignificant. He was not in a suit this time, but in dark, rugged clothing that seemed to cling to his powerful frame, accentuating his raw, untamed masculinity. His amber eyes, burning with an intense, unyielding fire, fixed directly on Lyra, a look of profound possessiveness in their depths. He ignored Ben, as if the human simply didn't exist, his entire focus consumed by Lyra, by his mate, by the undeniable call of their bond. The time is drawing near, Lyra, Kaelen stated, his voice a low, resonant rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air, carrying the weight of an undeniable truth, a relentless countdown. Can you feel it? Your wolf recognizes its alpha. It knows where it belongs. It yearns for its pack. He took a slow, deliberate step towards her, his presence radiating an almost overwhelming power that pressed down on her, stealing her breath. Come with me, Lyra. Now, before the moon claims you fully, before you are forced to choose. Choose your destiny. Choose your true family. Choose me. Then, despite his lingering fear, despite his obvious physical inferiority, straightened, stepping forward, instinctively placing himself between Lyra and Kaelen, a defiant, protective barrier. His jaw was set, his gaze unwavering, a quiet courage shining in his kind eyes. "She made her choice," Ben said, his voice trembling slightly, but firm with conviction. "She chose me. She chose our life. You have no right to just take her. She's not yours to claim." Kalen's lips curled into a slow, dangerous sneer, a flash of pure, untamed wolf in his eyes. He stopped, his gaze unwavering, fixed on Ben, a silent, chilling promise of what would happen if the human dared to stand in. His way. "You speak of choice, human, when you clearly understand nothing of what truly binds us," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, dangerous growl, laced with disdain. "This is not a matter of human choice. It is a matter of ancient law, of natural order. Stand aside, human, before I am forced to remove you." His stance shifted subtly, his muscles tensing, a visible ripple of raw power beneath his skin, a clear, unmistakable threat. Lyra felt a surge of raw terror. He would hurt Ben, he would break him, and she couldn't let that happen. She reached out, grasping Ben's arm, pulling him back, away from the inevitable, devastating collision. "No, Ben!" she cried out, her voice raw with anguish, tears streaming down her face. "Don't. You don't understand his power. You can't fight him." She looked at Kaelen, her eyes pleading, desperate. "Please, Kaelen, don't hurt him. He means nothing to your world. He's just a human." Kaelen's gaze, which had been fixed on Ben with a cold, predatory intensity, softened almost imperceptibly as it landed on Lyra, a flicker of something unreadable, something akin to possessive pride, in his amber depths. He respected her fierce protectiveness, even when it was directed towards another. "Then let him go, Lyra," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, compelling whisper, a velvet hammer, drawing her in, stripping away her resistance. "Let go of this human attachment. Embrace your true nature. Embrace your destiny. Embrace me, and he will be safe. I swear it, by the moon and by my pack, that no harm will come to him if you come willingly." The ultimatum hung in the air, a cruel, impossible choice that tore at Lyra's very soul. Her heart was a raw, bleeding wound, torn between the man she loved with all her human heart and the undeniable primal pull of her fated mate, the powerful alpha who represented a destiny she couldn't outrun. The moon, now almost full, cast its silver light over the scene, a silent, watchful witness to her profound, agonizing torment. Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that the true battle for her soul was just beginning, and she was caught in the impossible, devastating crossfire, utterly unprepared for the ultimate sacrifice that destiny now demanded of her. The moon, a luminous sentinel in the inky sky, seemed to swell with each passing night, its silver light bathing Lyra's suburban neighborhood in an ethereal, almost predatory glow. Each evening, as dusk bled into darkness, the internal hum of her awakening wolf intensified, a restless, insistent tremor that ran beneath her skin. Her senses, now unnervingly acute, picked up every rustle of leaves, every distant bark, every subtle shift in the wind. Sounds that had once been background noise now assaulted her with an overwhelming clarity. The wild, earthy scent that emanated from Kaelen, now a familiar and intoxicating presence in her memory, seemed to cling to the very air, a constant phantom of his formidable presence, a haunting reminder of the graph, ultimatum. Ben, in his earnest, human way, redoubled his efforts to find a solution. He spent countless hours huddled over his laptop, poring through obscure online forums and dusty library books, searching for any lore, any myth, any forgotten ritual that might offer a glimmer of hope. He spoke of ancient curses, of ways to sever mystical bonds, of protective talismans and forgotten remedies. His desperation was palpable, a raw, aching vulnerability that twisted Lyra's heart. He was fighting a battle he could never win, against an enemy he couldn't comprehend, armed only with the fragile weapons of human knowledge and an unwavering, heartbreaking love. He wanted to believe that logic and research could overcome an ancient, primal destiny. "I found something," Ben announced one evening, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep, his eyes bloodshot but gleaming with a fragile hope, as Lyra walked into their living room. He held up a thick leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age, its title faded. "An old text mentions a forgotten ritual, a way to challenge a mate bond. It requires ancient herbs, a specific location, a time when the veil between worlds is thinnest. It's dangerous, it says, but it might just work." His voice was filled with a desperate, almost childlike belief, clinging to the slim, improbable chance. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine, a profound unease settling in her gut. She knew, instinctively, that human rituals, human magic, held little sway over the ancient, unbreakable laws of the werewolf world. Kaelen's power wasn't just physical, it was primal, elemental, woven into the very fabric of existence. Yet, seeing the desperate hope in Ben's eyes, the unwavering determination that fueled his every action, she couldn't bring herself to extinguish his fragile spark of optimism, even if it felt tragically misguided. Ultimately, futile. "What does it say?" Lyra asked, her voice quiet, already knowing, deep down, that it wouldn't be enough. But she had to try. For Ben. For the love they shared. For the life they were fighting to preserve. She had to offer him that desperate final chance, however slim. Ben, energized by her apparent interest, began excitedly recounting the details of the ritual, his voice gaining strength as he described the obscure ingredients, the complex incantations, the precise alignment of celestial bodies required. He spoke of a secluded glade, deep within an ancient forest, a place where the human and spiritual worlds intersected. He even spoke of a blood sacrifice, a chilling detail he quickly tried to downplay, attributing it to archaic dramatic flourish. Lyra listened, her heart sinking with each fanciful detail, her scientific mind recoiling from the impossibility of it all. Yet, her awakening wolf, a silent, watchful presence within her, seemed to hum with an almost curious energy, a faint recognition of the ancient power Ben unknowingly sought to invoke. As the days crawled by, the pull of the full moon became almost unbearable. Lyra experienced vivid, fragmented dreams, not of wolves in their animal form, but of Kaelen. Dreams of his intense amber eyes, burning with a fierce, undeniable longing. Dreams of his touch, both tender and possessive. Dreams of running alongside him, through ancient forests under a silver moon. A sense of exhilarating freedom, of belonging, that both terrified and profoundly resonated with her deepest, most hidden desires. She would wake with a gasp, her body aching with an unfulfilled yearning, her mind reeling from the vivid intimacy of the dream. A profound sense of disorientation clouding her waking hours. The dreams felt impossibly real, more authentic than her waking life, blurring the lines between her human existence and the wild destiny that was calling to her. The closer it got to the full moon, the more frequent Kaelen's silent appearances became. He never entered their house again, not after Ben's unexpected return. Instead, Lyra would see him at the edge of the woods behind their property, a dark, imposing silhouette against the deepening twilight, his amber eyes burning with a silent, unwavering intensity. He didn't speak, didn't approach, just watched. A silent, powerful sentinel, radiating a quiet, unyielding patience, a powerful declaration of ownership. He was waiting, and the waiting, Lyra realized, was a profound, potent form of psychological warfare, chipping away at her resolve, wearing down her resistance. She would feel the bond thrumming, an insistent magnetic tug, pulling her towards him, towards the wild, towards the undeniable destiny she desperately tried to resist. One afternoon, just 2 days before the full moon, Lyra was alone in the house, Ben having gone to visit a colleague to consult on a particularly obscure historical text. The air in the house felt heavy, charged with an almost suffocating tension, the silence punctuated only by the frantic beat of her own heart. The bond pulsed, a relentless drumbeat in her veins, demanding acknowledgement. The wild, earthy scent permeated the air, stronger now than ever before, almost overwhelming her senses. She knew, instinctively, before she even saw him, that Kaelen was near, very near. She walked slowly, almost compelled, to the large sliding glass door that opened onto their small patio, overlooking the backyard. He was there, standing just beyond the edge of their manicured lawn, at the very beginning of the dense, ancient woods. He was not in human form. He was in his wolf form. He was even more immense, more powerfully built than she remembered from that first terrifying night. His fur, a shimmering charcoal in the fading light, bristled with raw power, rippling with latent strength. His amber eyes, burning with an almost blinding intensity, were fixed on her, a profound, ancient intelligence shining in their depths, a knowing that transcended the animal. He radiated an aura of untamed wilderness, of primal authority, a creature of myth made terrifyingly, undeniably real. His presence was overwhelming, both terrifying and profoundly, undeniably magnetic, drawing her in like a moth to a dangerous flame. Lyra felt her breath catch in her throat. Fear, cold and sharp, coiled in her gut. Yet, beneath the fear, a strange, exhilarating thrill coursed through her veins, a primal recognition that resonated deep within her awakening wolf. Her body hummed in response, a powerful, almost uncontrollable urge to submit, to acknowledge, to run to him, to bow to him, to acknowledge her true alpha. It was an instinct so profound, so overwhelming, that it threatened to eclipse all logic, all reason, all human loyalty. Kaelen, in his wolf form, took a slow, deliberate step towards her, his massive paws silent on the damp earth. Then another. He moved with a predatory grace, a silent, powerful assertion of his claim, his movements a symphony of untamed power. He stopped just meters from the glass door, his amber eyes never leaving hers, seeing beyond the glass, beyond her fear, directly into the awakened depths of her soul. A single low growl rumbled in his chest, not a sound of aggression, but a deep, resonant rumble of profound longing, of ancient recognition, a powerful invitation, a commanding declaration. It was the call of the alpha to his fated mate, a sound that spoke of belonging, of connection, of a destiny that could not be denied. And then Lyra felt it. Her own body responded, a profound, unsettling shift occurring deep within her, a visceral sensation that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Her muscles tensed, her bones ached, a subtle tremor running through her limbs. Her breath hitched, ragged and uneven. Her human skin felt suddenly too tight, too constricting, a cage containing a wildness that demanded to be unleashed. The scent of Kaelen, of wild earth and potent power, filled her lungs, intoxicating and overwhelming. Her own instincts, primal and insistent, surged to the forefront of her consciousness, clamoring for release, for transformation, for unity. She pressed her hand against the cool glass, her palm flat against the barrier that separated her from her destiny, from the wildness that called to her. Her eyes, fixed on Kaelen's burning amber gaze, filled with a complex mixture of fear, longing, and a profound, aching sorrow. She was being torn apart. Her human heart, still aching for Ben, for the life they had built, was pitted against the undeniable, visceral call of her awakening wolf, her fated mate, her true nature. Kaelen let out another low, mournful howl, a sound of profound yearning, of an ancient promise, a primal demand. It was a call that resonated deep in Lyra's very marrow, stirring a powerful, instinctual response she fought desperately to suppress. His head tilted slightly, his gaze unwavering, a silent, powerful question hanging in the air between them. Are you coming? Are you ready to embrace what you truly are? The choice, Lyra realized with a chilling certainty, was no longer merely intellectual. It was visceral, primal, a profound battle for her very soul. The full moon was coming, and with it, the inevitable transformation. The wolf within her would be unleashed, and when it was, she knew, with a terrifying clarity, that there was no going back. The life she had built, the man she loved, would be irrevocably shattered, and she had no idea how she was going to face the brutal, terrifying, yet undeniably compelling choice that destiny now demanded of her. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating, a prelude to the inevitable storm that would tear her life apart. The moment Kaelen, in his full wolf form, had called to her, something deep within Lyra had shifted irrevocably. The human part of her, the rational, logical Lyra, still recoiled from the impossibility of it all, clinging desperately to the life she had built with Ben. But the awakening wolf, now a powerful, undeniable force within her, vibrated with a primal recognition, a profound yearning that defied all reason, all human loyalty. It was a terrifying, exhilarating experience, a sense of being torn limb from limb, yet simultaneously feeling more whole, more alive than she ever had before. She spent the remaining 2 days before the full moon in a haze of heightened senses and agonizing indecision. Every scent, every sound, every subtle shift in light or shadow was amplified, almost painfully acute. She could hear the rustle of individual leaves outside, the distant chirping of crickets, the faint scent of rain carried on the wind even before the first drop fell. Her body hummed with a restless energy, a latent power that thrummed beneath her skin, demanding release. Sleep offered no escape, only vivid, disorienting dreams of running through ancient forests, of the exhilarating freedom of the chase, always with Kaelen's powerful presence by her side, a silent, commanding force. Ben, bless his unwavering human heart, continued his frantic research. He returned home with more esoteric books, online printouts, and even a small, crudely fashioned wooden amulet, which he insisted would ward off malevolent spirits and unwanted influences. He spoke of secret ceremonies in secluded glades, of ancient vows and blood rituals that could, perhaps, sever the mate bond. His eyes, though still clouded with fear and exhaustion, held a desperate, unwavering hope, a poignant belief in the power of human will against supernatural destiny. Lyra watched him, her heart aching with a profound, almost unbearable tenderness. He was so good, so loyal, so utterly deserving of a normal, uncomplicated life. The thought of inflicting this impossible reality upon him, of tearing his world apart, was an almost physical pain, a sharp, constant throb in her chest. "Lyra," Ben said late one night, his voice gentle but firm, breaking the tense silence that had settled between them like a shroud. They were sitting on their sofa, the soft glow of a table lamp casting long shadows across the room, creating an intimate, fragile bubble against the encroaching darkness. "I know this is terrifying. I know it feels like a nightmare. But we have to make a plan. We can't just wait for him to come. For you, we have to fight this. Together. We can go to that glade I read about. We can try the ritual. Even if it's a long shot. It's better than doing nothing. It's better than just surrendering to him, to that creature, to that life." His hand found hers, his grip surprisingly firm, reassuring. Lyra looked at him, her vision blurred by unshed tears. His unwavering love, his stubborn refusal to give up on them, was both a comfort and a terrible burden. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that any human ritual would be utterly futile against the ancient power of the Alpha Bond. It might even put Ben in even greater danger. But how could she tell him that? How could she crush his desperate hope? How could she tell him that a part of her, a powerful primal part, was already yearning for the very destiny he sought to avert? "Ben," Lyra began, her voice thick with emotion, her throat tight with unshed tears. I appreciate everything you're doing. Truly. Your strength, your love. It means the world to me. But I don't think a ritual, a human ritual, can break something so ancient, so ingrained. He's an alpha, Ben. His power is beyond anything we can comprehend. And if we try to fight him directly, if we try to defy him, he promised there would be consequences for you. And I can't risk you." Her voice broke, a sob escaping her lips. "I just can't." Ben pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, holding her tightly, his familiar scent of books and warm coffee a comforting anchor against the wildness that now thrummed within her. "Then what do we do, Lyra?" he whispered, his voice cracking raw with despair. "Just let him take you? Just let our life, our love, just end? I can't. I won't. I love you, Lyra, and I won't give up on us. Not now. Not ever." His words, filled with such profound love and unwavering devotion, tore at her soul, leaving her utterly, irrevocably torn. She loved him. She truly, deeply loved him. And the thought of abandoning him, of shattering his heart, was an agony that surpassed all fear, all the terrifying allure of her awakening wolf. But the undeniable pull of Kaelen, the primal recognition, the sense of belonging that resonated deep within her, was a force that felt utterly, impossibly, beyond her control. As the final sunset of their human life together painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a profound, heavy silence settled over their home. The air thrummed with unspoken words, with unfulfilled dreams, with the agonizing weight of an impossible choice. Lyra stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the rising moon, now a vast luminous orb, almost perfectly full, its silver light spilling across their suburban neighborhood, transforming the familiar into something alien, something magical, something wild. She felt the subtle shift begin, a tingling sensation in her limbs, a prickling on her skin, a profound restlessness that intensified with each passing moment. Her breath hitched, her heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. And then she saw him, Kaelen, not in human form, not in wolf form either. He stood at the edge of the woods, midway between the two, his body a shimmering, shifting blur of power and intensity. He was in transition, a powerful, awe-inspiring display of his primal strength, a silent, terrifying warning. His eyes, burning amber, fixed on her, drawing her in, pulling her with an irresistible force. He was a creature of myth, of ancient power, and he was here, waiting, demanding his fated mate. The bond snapped, tightened, becoming an almost physical tether, pulling her towards him with an undeniable urgency. The scent of wildness, of pine and damp earth and raw power, overwhelmed her, intoxicating her senses, filling her lungs, drowning out every other thought, every other fear, every other loyalty. Her body began to hum, vibrating with an almost unbearable energy, responding to his primal call, to the absolute, undeniable command of her alpha. The transformation had begun. "Lyra!" Ben's voice, raw with desperation, jolted her from her trance. He stood behind her, his face pale, etched with terror, his eyes wide with horror as he witnessed the subtle, terrifying shifts occurring in her. He saw the way her body trembled, the almost luminous quality in her eyes, the raw, visceral response to Kaelen's presence. He saw the truth. He lunged for her, wrapping his arms around her, pulling her back, away from the window, away from the irresistible pull of the wild. "No, Lyra," he cried out, his voice choked with sobs, clinging to her with a desperate, heartbreaking strength. "Don't go. Don't leave me. Please, Lyra, don't leave me. We can fight this. We can find a way." But Lyra could barely hear him, his voice muffled by the roaring in her ears. The overwhelming call of the moon, the primal demands of her awakening wolf, her body strained against his embrace, an almost violent urge to break free, to run to Kaelen, to surrender to the wild, to embrace her true nature. The conflict was tearing her apart, a brutal, agonizing battle between her human heart and her awakening wolf. Kaelen, seeing her struggle, seeing Ben's desperate attempt to hold her back, let out a deep, guttural growl, a sound of pure, unadulterated impatience, a warning that vibrated through the very foundations of the house. He took another step, then another, his powerful transitioning form moving with a menacing grace, approaching their patio, ready to break through any barrier, to claim what was his. Lyra knew, with a terrifying clarity, that she had to make a choice. Now, before Kaelen reached them, before he heard Ben, before her own transformation became irreversible, before she lost herself completely to the wild, she looked at Ben, her heart aching with an unbearable pain, his face etched with terror and profound love, his tears mirroring her own. And then she looked at Kaelen, his amber eyes burning with a fierce, undeniable hunger, a promise of power and belonging that tugged at the deepest, most primal parts of her. The decision, when it finally came, was not one of conscious choice, but of desperate, agonizing sacrifice. "Ben," Lyra whispered, her voice raw, choked with tears. "I have to. For you, to keep you safe. He won't stop. He won't ever stop. And I can't let him hurt you." She pulled away from his embrace, her body trembling, her movements stiff, almost robotic, propelled by a will she barely recognized as her own, a crushing inevitability. Then stared at her, his eyes wide with a dawning horror, his face a mask of profound disbelief. "No," he whispered, a guttural sound of raw despair. "Lyra, no. Don't do this. Don't abandon me. Don't abandon us." He reached for her, his hand grasping desperately at her arm, trying to pull her back, to hold on to her, to cling to the fragments of their shattered life. But Lyra shook her head, tears streaming down her face, a silent, agonizing farewell. Her body was already moving, drawn by an irresistible force, by the primal call of her fated mate, by the undeniable truth of her awakening wolf. With a profound, agonizing wrench, she pulled away from Ben's desperate grasp, severing the last physical tie to her human life. She stumbled towards the patio door, her limbs feeling strangely heavy, yet imbued with a newfound strength, a restless energy that pulsed beneath her skin. She fumbled with the latch, her trembling fingers clumsy, her mind a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, of love and fear, and a terrifying, exhilarating wildness. Just as she unlatched the door, Kaelen shifted, his enormous, powerful body solidifying, fully wolf now, a magnificent, terrifying creature of pure primal power. He was breathtaking, formidable, radiating an aura of untamed strength that commanded reverence, demanded surrender. His amber eyes, burning with an almost blinding intensity, met hers, a silent, powerful acknowledgement of her acceptance, of her sacrifice. With a final, desperate sob, a silent farewell to the human life she was leaving behind, Lyra opened the door and stepped out onto the patio, into the cool night air, into the blinding silver light of the full moon. Her body hummed, vibrated, responding to the ancient call, to the undeniable pull of her fated mate. The transformation, Lyra knew, was inevitable. She was Lyra Thorne, human, but no longer. She was the Alpha's fated mate, and she had chosen, with a broken heart, to embrace her terrifying destiny, to step into the wild, to protect the man she loved, even if it meant abandoning him, even if it meant losing herself forever. The moon hummed high, a silent, watchful witness to her ultimate, heartbreaking surrender. The cold night air hit Lyra with the force of a physical blow as she stepped onto the patio, the scent of damp earth and pine, overwhelmingly infused with Kaelen's potent, wild musk, filling her lungs. The world seemed to tilt, her senses exploding, a kaleidoscope of amplified sights and sounds. The grass beneath her bare feet felt impossibly real, each blade distinct, sharply defined. The rustle of leaves in the ancient oak seemed to whisper secrets, and the distant hoot of an owl resonated deep in her bones. Everything was sharper, clearer, more intensely vivid than she had ever experienced in her human life. Kaelen, in his magnificent wolf form, took a step towards her, his movements silent, predatory, yet imbued with a strange, compelling grace. His amber eyes, burning with an almost blinding intensity, fixed on hers, radiating a profound, ancient recognition, a triumphant ownership that sent a shiver through her, a mixture of fear and an undeniable, magnetic pull. He was a creature of myth, terrifying and beautiful, and he was her destiny. Lyra's body responded, not to her conscious will, but to a primal, instinctual command. Her limbs felt heavy, yet simultaneously charged with a restless, powerful energy. Her skin tingled, a prickling sensation that spread rapidly, a profound heat blooming in her chest, radiating outwards. Her bones ached, a subtle shifting beginning, a deep unsettling tremor that ran through her very core. She gasped, a ragged sound escaping her lips, as the transformation, no longer a distant threat but an imminent reality, began its inexorable course. Behind her, she heard Ben's choked sob, his voice raw with despair. "Lyra, no!" He lunged forward, trying to grab her, to pull her back into the safety of their human home, to reclaim her from the wildness that was already consuming her. But Kaelen moved with impossible speed, a blur of dark fur and raw power. He placed his massive body between Lyra and Ben, a formidable, unyielding barrier. He didn't touch Ben, but a low, guttural growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of pure, untamed aggression, a warning that made the very air vibrate, a clear declaration of his absolute territoriality, his unshakable claim. Ben stumbled back, his face ashen, his eyes wide with primal fear, realizing the insurmountable chasm that now separated him from the woman he loved. He knew, instinctively, that he was utterly outmatched, utterly powerless. Lyra felt the bond thrumming, vibrating with Kaelen's possessive power, his command. Her own body clenched, responding to the Alpha's dominance, to the undeniable pull of her fated mate. The internal battle raged, her human will fighting desperately against the primal instinct that screamed for surrender, for release, for transformation. But the wolf within her was too strong, too insistent, too eager to finally break free. The pain came then, a searing, agonizing fire that ripped through her body, radiating outwards from her bones, from her very core. She cried out, a guttural sound that was not entirely human, her knees buckling beneath her, her vision blurred, distorted, as her world compressed into a blinding agony. Her skin stretched, tightened, feeling as if it was tearing. Her bones shifted, cracked, elongated, reshaped, a terrifying symphony of transformation. She fell to her hands and knees on the cool, damp grass, panting, sobbing, consumed by the overwhelming metamorphosis. Through the haze of pain, she saw Kaelen. He stood over her, his powerful body shielding her from Ben's horrified gaze, his amber eyes burning with an intense, unyielding focus, a strange, profound empathy in their depths. He didn't interfere, didn't touch her, but his silent, powerful presence was a grounding force, a silent promise of protection, of guidance through the agonizing transition. He was her anchor in the storm of her own transformation. The world around her became a blur of raw sensation. The scent of pine and wet earth, of Kaelen's overwhelming musk, filled her every pore. Sounds became deafening, every rustle, every distant whisper, amplified beyond comprehension. Her hands, when she risked a glance, were no longer human, but covered in coarse charcoal fur, her fingers elongating, sharpening into powerful claws. Her jaw ached, her teeth felt too long, too sharp. Her spine arched, elongating, a tail twitching into existence behind her, a powerful new appendage. The agony was immense, a profound primal tearing apart and reshaping, but beneath it, a strange, exhilarating sense of liberation began to blossom. A wildness, a raw, untamed freedom she had never known, surged through her, exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. She was being reborn, shedding her human skin, embracing her true nature, finally responding to the ancient call that had been humming beneath her skin for weeks. With a final, agonizing lurch, the transformation was complete. Lyra stood, not as a human, but as a wolf, her body, powerful and sleek, was covered in soft charcoal fur, the same color as Kaelen's, blending seamlessly with the shadows. Her senses were overwhelmed, a symphony of scent and sound and touch. The world was new, vibrant, terrifyingly alive. She felt the ground beneath her paws, the cool night air rustling through her fur, the exhilarating freedom of unburdened movement, a profound connection to the earth beneath her. She looked at Kaelen, her head tilting instinctively, her new wolf eyes, now a luminous amber, meeting his. There was no fear now, only a profound recognition, an undeniable bond that hummed between them, a silent communication that transcended words. He was her alpha, and she, irrevocably, was his fated mate. The realization settled in her with a powerful, undeniable certainty, a profound sense of belonging she had never truly experienced in her human life. Behind her, a faint, human whimper broke the spell, pulling her back, however briefly, to the shattered remnants of her past. She turned, her new wolf form moving with an almost unnatural grace, her eyes landing on Ben. He stood by the patio door, frozen in horror, his face ashen, his eyes wide with a profound, soul-deep despair. He saw not the woman he loved, but a magnificent, terrifying creature of the night, a being of myth made real, a wolf standing beside another, even larger wolf. The chasm between them had widened into an unbridgeable abyss. For a brief, agonizing moment, Lyra felt a sharp pang of profound sorrow, a wrenching ache for the life she had lost, for the man she had loved, for the human world she had left behind forever. But the wolf within her, newly awakened, fierce and possessive, pulled her towards Kaelen, towards her true nature, towards her undeniable destiny. The choice had been made, irrevocably. The human part of her, however bruised and battered, was forced to yield to the primal compelling call of her fated mate, her true alpha. Kaelen let out a low, satisfied rumble, a sound of profound triumph, of ancient claim. He nudged Lyra gently with his powerful muzzle, a silent invitation, a clear command. The unspoken message resonated deeply in her, pulling her towards him, towards their shared future, towards the wild. Lyra turned her back on the shattered remnants of her human life, on the grieving human figure by the door. With a final agonizing glance at Ben, a silent farewell that tore at her heart, she followed Kaelen. They moved together, two magnificent creatures of the night, melding seamlessly into the deep shadows of the ancient woods, disappearing from sight, leaving behind only the profound silence, the lingering scent of wildness, and the heartbroken cries of a human whose world had just been irrevocably shattered. The moon, now perfectly full, hung high above, a silent, impassive witness to the irreversible claiming of a fated mate, the profound and terrible beauty of destiny fulfilled, and the heartbreaking cost of a love that could never be. The suburban street lay still, unaware of the ancient drama that had just unfolded within its quiet confines, a new wild world now bleeding into the ordinary, forever altering the landscape of Lyra's existence. The forest swallowed them whole. Lyra ran, not as a human, but as a wolf, her powerful new body moving with an exhilarating freedom she had never known. The thick undergrowth, which would have tripped her as a human, yielded easily to her paws. The scents of pine, damp earth, and decaying leaves filled her nostrils, a symphony of the wild, each one distinct and vivid. She ran beside Kaelen, his massive form a blur of charcoal fur beside her, his powerful strides effortlessly matching hers. The bond hummed between them, a silent, powerful communication that transcended words, guiding her, pulling her deeper into the heart of the woods, into a world that was both alien and profoundly, undeniably familiar. The agony of the transformation had given way to an exhilarating surge of raw energy, a boundless vitality that coursed through her veins. Every muscle, every fiber of her being felt alive, responsive, perfectly attuned to the rhythm of the forest. The air, crisp and cool, filled her lungs with an intoxicating freshness. She felt lighter, faster, stronger than she had ever been, liberated from the confines of her human form, embracing a power she had never known she possessed. Yet, beneath the exhilarating thrill of her newfound freedom, a profound, aching sorrow lingered, a ghost of the life she had just abandoned, the love she had left behind. Ben's heartbroken cry echoed faintly in her memory, a mournful counterpoint to the wild symphony of the forest. Kaelen led her deeper into the ancient woods, through a labyrinth of towering trees and dense thickets, until they reached a clearing bathed in the soft, ethereal glow of the full moon. There, nestled amongst the trees, stood a collection of rustic yet sturdy log cabins, their windows glowing with a warm, inviting light. A faint haze of wood smoke curled from their chimneys, carrying the comforting scent of burning timber. This was the pack, her new home. As they emerged from the shadows of the trees, a hush fell over the clearing. Wolves, of various sizes and shades of fur, emerged from the cabins, from the shadows, their amber eyes, intelligent and watchful, fixed on Lyra. They stood in a silent semicircle, their postures alert, assessing, some with wary curiosity, others with a profound sense of awe. They were magnificent creatures, powerful and disciplined, radiating an aura of shared strength, of ancient unity. Kaelen moved to the center of the clearing, his powerful form commanding immediate deference, his amber eyes sweeping over his pack, a silent acknowledgement of their presence. He then turned his head, nudging Lyra gently with his muzzle, a clear, powerful signal. "Oh, mate." The unspoken message resonated through the bond, a profound, ancient declaration that filled Lyra with a mixture of immense pride and a terrifying vulnerability. This was her introduction. This was her new family. A collective rumble, a low, respectful sound, rippled through the pack, a silent acknowledgement of their alpha's fated mate. Then, one by one, the wolves began to shift, their forms blurring, twisting, their powerful bodies undergoing the same painful yet exhilarating metamorphosis that Lyra had just endured. Within moments, the clearing was filled with humans, men and women of various ages, their features bearing the subtle marks of their wolf nature's sharp eyes, powerful builds, an undeniable aura of untamed wildness. They were a diverse group, but their eyes, when they met hers, held the same intelligent, knowing amber light she had come to associate with Kaelen. A woman with a mane of fiery red hair and eyes the color of molten gold stepped forward, her expression a mix of wary assessment and grudging acceptance. "Welcome, Lyra," she said, her voice strong and clear, though edged with a faint, almost imperceptible challenge. "I am Lena, Kaelen's beta. We have been awaiting your arrival. Though, if I'm honest, we did not expect you to arrive quite so attached." Her gaze flickered pointedly to the lingering scent of human anxiety that still clung to Lyra, a faint, almost imperceptible trace of Ben's despair. Lyra felt a flicker of defiance, a defensive prickle of resentment. She was still reeling from her transformation, from the agonizing wrench of leaving Ben, and this woman's subtle jab struck a raw nerve. "It was not a choice I made lightly," Lyra stated, her voice, though still human, imbued with a newfound strength, an emerging confidence that surprised even herself. "Nor was it a life easily abandoned." Kaelen, now in his human form, a powerful, imposing figure in the center of the clearing, stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Lyra's shoulder, a silent, powerful gesture of support, of ownership. His amber eyes, though human now, still held the deep primal wisdom of his wolf. "She faced a difficult choice, Lena," he stated, his voice a low, commanding rumble that brooked no argument. "And she chose her destiny. She chose us. Show her the respect she deserves. She is our Luna." The word Luna resonated with a profound weight, a title of immense power and responsibility, instantly cementing Lyra's new role within the pack. A deeper, more respectful rumble rippled through the gathered wolves, their gazes shifting from assessment to acceptance, to a profound, almost reverent deference. Lena's golden eyes softened, her posture relaxing, a grudging respect dawning in their depths. "Forgive my bluntness, Luna," Lena said, her voice now respectful, almost deferential, her earlier challenge replaced by a quiet submission. "It has been a long time since we had a Luna. And the bond, it has been long awaited. We simply wish for our Alpha's happiness, and for the strength of our pack." Lyra nodded, a silent acknowledgement of Lena's words, her head still spinning from the rapid shifts in her reality. She was not just a werewolf now. She was the Luna, the Alpha's mate, a leader within this ancient, powerful community. The weight of it settled on her shoulders, heavy and profound. Kaelen led her to the largest cabin, his hand gently but firmly resting at the small of her back, guiding her. The interior was surprisingly warm and inviting, a rustic yet comfortable space with a large stone fireplace, plush furs scattered on the floor, and the comforting scent of wood smoke and wolf. It was clearly Kaelen's home, the Alpha's den. And now, it was hers too. "You must be exhausted," Kaelen said, his voice softer now, laced with a genuine concern that surprised her. He led her to a large, comfortable bed piled high with furs, a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of his penthouse bedroom. "The first shift is taxing, and the bond will be overwhelming at first. Rest, Lyra. You are safe here. You are home." He looked at her, his amber eyes, still holding the deep, knowing wisdom of his wolf, searching hers. There was a profound tenderness in his gaze, a quiet understanding that transcended their tumultuous introduction, transcended the circumstances of their fated bond. For the first time, Lyra felt a flicker of genuine peace, a sense of the longing that resonated deep within her, a quiet comfort in his presence. The fierce, possessive Alpha was also a gentle, understanding mate. As Lyra lay down on the soft furs, the warmth of the roaring fire a comforting presence, she closed her eyes, exhausted to her very core. Her body still hummed with the aftershocks of her transformation, her new wolf senses alive and vibrant. But the raw agony of leaving Ben, the profound sorrow of her shattered human life, still lingered, a haunting counterpoint to the exhilarating freedom of her new existence. She was home, yes. She was the Luna. She was the Alpha's fated mate. But the path to this destiny had been paved with heartbreak, with an impossible choice that had torn her soul in two. Sleep, when it finally came, was a restless tapestry of vivid dreams. Dreams of running through the forest, wild and free, with Kaelen by her side. Dreams of her new pack, a sea of intelligent amber eyes, accepting her. But also haunting dreams of Ben, his face etched with sorrow, his bewildered eyes pleading, his voice echoing, "Don't leave me." Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that while she had embraced her destiny, the shadows of her past, the echoes of her human love, would continue to haunt her, a persistent, aching reminder of the devastating choice she had been forced to make. Her new life as Luna had just begun, but the scars of her old life were deeply etched, irrevocably altering the landscape of her new reality. The forest offered freedom, but it could not erase the profound sorrow that lingered in her heart. The days that followed Lyra's first shift were a kaleidoscope of new sensations and overwhelming information. Her senses remained intensely heightened, a constant barrage of input that took time to filter and manage. The forest was no longer just a backdrop. It was a living, breathing entity, its myriad scents and sounds a complex language she was slowly learning to decipher. The pack itself was a bustling, vibrant community, far more intricate and organized than she had initially imagined. She learned their routines, their hierarchy, their traditions, absorbing everything like a sponge. Kaelen was an omnipresent guiding force. In his human form, he was patient, direct, answering her endless questions with a quiet authority that brooked no argument, yet also a surprising tenderness. He walked her through the intricacies of pack life, explaining their ancient laws, their responsibilities, their customs. He spoke of the importance of loyalty, of unity, of the unwavering bond that held them together as a family. When he spoke of the pack, his amber eyes glowed with a fierce, protective love, a deep-seated devotion that resonated with Lyra's own nascent understanding of what it meant to belong. "The Luna's role is not just symbolic," Kaelen explained one afternoon, as they sat by a roaring fire in his cabin, the comforting scent of burning wood filling the air. He was sketching diagrams of pack territories in the dirt with a stick, his brow furrowed in concentration. "You are my voice, my counsel. You are the pack's emotional anchor, their confidant. You ensure harmony, mediate disputes, provide comfort and strength. Your intuition, your empathy will be vital. You will guide them as I protect them." His gaze met hers, intense and unwavering. "Your human experience, Lyra, though it may feel like a burden now, will be a strength. You understand nuances, complexities that many born wolves, accustomed only to pack dynamics, might overlook. You bridge two worlds." Lyra found herself slowly, cautiously, opening up to him. She asked about the history of the pack, their alliances, their conflicts. Kaelen spoke of ancient feuds with neighboring packs, of rogue wolves who threatened the delicate balance of their territories, of the constant vigilance required to protect their way of life. He spoke of his own past, of the weight of leadership that had fallen on him at a young age, of the loneliness of command, of his longing for his fated mate. His vulnerability, shared in quiet moments, chipped away at her lingering reservations, forging a deeper, more profound connection between them that transcended the initial shock and forced nature of their bond. The physical intimacy between them remained chaste, honoring their human vows, Kaelen explained, until Lyra was truly ready, until she fully accepted her new nature and their fated bond, not just as a survival mechanism, but as her chosen reality. But the unspoken intimacy, the profound emotional connection that pulsed between them through the bond, was undeniable. His presence brought her a profound sense of calm, a quiet understanding that settled her restless wolf, grounding her. The bond, no longer just a relentless tug, became a comforting hum, a constant awareness of his proximity, a profound resonance that vibrated deep within her soul. Lena, the beta, initially wary, slowly became a trusted confidant. She guided Lyra through the practicalities of pack life, teaching her about hunting, about tracking, about the subtle language of wolf communication. Lena, with her fiery spirit and fierce loyalty, understood Lyra's struggles, having herself chosen the pack life after a tumultuous past. "It's not easy, Luna," Lena admitted one morning as they practiced shifting, Lyra's human body still clumsily transitioning, her bones aching with the effort. "Leaving one life for another, the human ties, they cling, but the pack, it offers a belonging no human world can match, a primal connection, an unwavering family. You will see. You will feel it in your bones." And Lyra did. She felt the subtle shift in the pack's energy, the collective consciousness that flowed between them, a powerful, unifying force. She participated in hunts, her new wolf instincts guiding her, the thrill of the chase exhilarating, primal. She learned to communicate with the other wolves, not just through howls and growls, but through scent, through posture, through the subtle language of the wild. She felt a profound sense of belonging, a deep, resonant connection to this ancient community, a fierce loyalty blooming in her heart. This was her family now, her true home. Yet, the shadow of her past, the lingering ache for Ben, remained. Every night, before she allowed herself to succumb to the exhaustion of her new life, she would stand by the window of Kaelen's cabin, her gaze fixed on the distant lights of the town, a faint, almost imperceptible glow on the horizon. Ben was there. Her human life was there. A pang of profound sorrow, of guilt, would pierce through the growing comfort of her new existence. Had she truly done the right thing? Had she simply abandoned him, or had she truly saved him from a fate far worse than heartbreak? The question haunted her, a persistent whisper in the quiet moments. One evening, as the moon, now beginning its slow wane, cast long shadows through the forest, Lyra confided in Kaelen. They were sitting by the dying embers of a bonfire, the pack having dispersed to their cabins for the night, leaving them alone in the quiet solitude of the forest. The air was cool, crisp, filled with the comforting scent of wood smoke. "I still think of him," Lyra admitted, her voice soft, barely a whisper, gazing into the flickering flames, watching the embers dance and fade. "Of Ben, of the life we had, the love. It's a wound, Kaelen, an ache that lingers." She felt the admission was a betrayal, a stain on their nascent connection, a weakness she should not confess. Kaelen was silent for a long moment, his amber eyes fixed on the fire, his expression unreadable. Lyra braced herself for his frustration, for a return to the cold, possessive alpha who had dismissed Ben as irrelevant. But when he finally spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle, imbued with a profound understanding that stunned her, that soothed her restless wolf. "I know, Lyra," Kaelen said, his voice a low, comforting rumble. "And I would not ask you to forget him or to pretend that love did not exist. It was a part of your journey, a part of who you are. To deny it would be to deny a piece of your soul." But his gaze met hers, intense, unwavering. "He was of the human world, and you are not anymore. Your path was always meant to lead here, to me, to the pack. The bond does not erase your past, Lyra, but it shapes your future. And our future, Lyra, is together, as mates, as Alpha and Luna, as pack." He reached out, his hand gently covering hers, his touch sending a warmth through her that spread rapidly, calming the lingering ache in her heart. "The bond is growing stronger every day," Kaelen continued, his voice soft, intimate. "You feel it, don't you? The connection, the belonging, the rightness of it." Lyra nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. He was right. She did feel it. The bond with Kaelen, The profound, undeniable connection was becoming a living, breathing entity, a source of immense strength and comfort, a deep, resonant echo of her true self. The yearning for Ben still existed, a nostalgic ache, but it was slowly, subtly, being overshadowed by a new, more powerful emotion, a profound, undeniable love for Kaelen, for this wild, ancient world, for the destiny she had initially fought so desperately to deny. "And scared," Lyra confessed, her voice barely a whisper, admitting the vulnerability she had desperately tried to suppress. "Scared of what I've become. Scared of what this means. Scared of losing myself completely." Kaelen squeezed her hand gently, his thumb stroking her knuckles with a surprising tenderness that melted her lingering fears. "You are not losing yourself, Lyra," he murmured, his gaze intense, unwavering, radiating a fierce, protective love that took her breath away. "You are becoming more of yourself, your true self, the self the moon chose, the self your wolf yearns to be. And you will never be alone again. You have me. You have the pack. Always." As he spoke, he leaned closer, his warm breath ghosting over her lips. His amber eyes, deep and knowing, held hers, mirroring the profound shift that was occurring within her, acknowledging the truth that had blossomed between them, a truth that transcended all logic, all human limitation. The air between them crackled with an unspoken tension, an undeniable yearning, a powerful, magnetic pull. "Let go of your fear, Lyra," Kaelen whispered, his voice a low, compelling rumble that seemed to resonate directly in her soul. "Embrace who you are. Embrace what we are, together." And then he kissed her. It was a kiss born not of contract, not of duty, but of a fierce, undeniable longing, a profound, ancient connection. His lips were warm, firm, a powerful, intoxicating sensation that sent a wildfire through her veins, igniting every nerve ending, drowning out every lingering doubt, every ghost of her human past. It was a kiss of ownership, yes, but also of profound tenderness, of shared destiny, of a love that was as wild and untamed as the forest itself. Lyra responded instinctively, her hands reaching out, tangling in his dark, silken hair, pulling him closer, deepening the kiss. Her wolf surged within her, a triumphant roar of recognition, of belonging, of a powerful, undeniable connection finally fulfilled. In that moment, surrounded by the ancient silence of the forest, bathed in the gentle glow of the waning moon, Lyra realized that she had not just found her destiny, but her true home, her true self, in the arms of the part Alpha. The last lingering shadows of her human past began to recede, fading into the background, overshadowed by the fierce, undeniable light of her new, wild, profound love. The sacrifice had been immense. The pain of leaving Ben, a raw, aching wound. But in Kaelen's embrace, Lyra felt a profound sense of completeness, a terrifying, exhilarating realization that this was where she truly belonged. And for the first time, she truly believed that she could navigate the complexities of her new existence, not just as the Alpha's fated mate, but as the Luna, a powerful leader, a woman transformed, irrevocably, profoundly, by the wild call of her destiny. The pack, Lyra quickly discovered, was a tightly knit unit, its members bound not only by blood and instinct, but by an intricate web of shared responsibilities and unwavering loyalty. As the Luna, her integration was paramount, not merely a matter of personal acceptance, but a fundamental strengthening of the pack's very core. Her days became a blend of training, learning, and the subtle art of leadership. Kaelen meticulously guided her through every aspect, his patience unwavering, his expectations clear. Her shifts, once agonizing and clumsy, became smoother, more intuitive. Lena, the beta, proved to be an exceptional mentor, her fiery spirit tempered by a deep understanding of pack dynamics and Lyra's unique journey. They spent hours together in the forest, running as wolves, their powerful bodies moving in synchronized harmony through the ancient trees. Lena taught Lyra to track, to hunt, to distinguish the myriad scents that painted the forest floor, to read the subtle signals of the wild. Lyra learned the pack's unique howls, the warning cry, the hunting call, the triumphant howl of a successful chase, and the mournful lament of loss. Each sound resonated deep within her, awakening an ancient part of her soul, connecting her to a heritage she never knew she possessed. During pack meetings, Kaelen would defer to Lyra, seeking her counsel, valuing her insights, especially those gleaned from her human perspective. She found herself mediating disputes between hot-headed young wolves, offering comfort to grieving families, and helping to organize communal hunts and patrols. Her empathy, a trait honed in her human life, proved invaluable, allowing her to connect with pack members on a deeper level, to understand their individual struggles, to weave herself into the intricate tapestry of their lives. The fear that she would lose herself, that she would become entirely consumed by her wolf nature, slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of integration, of becoming more, not less, of who she was. Her love for Kaelen deepened with each passing day. He was not just the formidable alpha, the powerful leader who commanded respect and obedience, but a tender, compassionate mate who understood her silences, who anticipated her needs, who offered unwavering support. Their connection, forged in the crucible of destiny, blossomed into a profound, undeniable love, a bond that intertwined their souls, making them stronger together. Their nights, spent in Kaelen's cabin, were filled with a quiet intimacy, a deep, unspoken understanding that permeated every touch, every shared glance. He never pushed her for physical intimacy she wasn't ready for, honoring her gradual adjustment to their bond, his patience a testament to his profound respect for her. But the emotional closeness, the raw vulnerability they shared, was a powerful force that bound them tighter than any physical act ever could. Yet, despite the blossoming love and the profound sense of belonging, the ghost of her past refused to be entirely silenced. Ben's face, etched with heartbreak, occasionally appeared in the quiet moments, a pang of guilt, a whisper of sorrow that resonated deep within her, a poignant reminder of the love she had left behind. She knew she had made the impossible choice to protect him, to save him from Kaelen's inevitable wrath, but the cost had been immense, a raw, aching wound in her heart. She sometimes wondered what he was doing, how he was coping, if he would ever truly understand the profound, inexplicable truth of her departure. The pack, however, faced its own burgeoning challenges. Whispers of unrest from the neighboring Crescent Moon pack began to filter through their territory. Their alpha, a volatile and aggressive male named Jax, had been growing increasingly ambitious, his hunger for territory and power escalating with each passing season. He was known for his ruthless tactics, his disregard for ancient laws, and his fierce, almost pathological possessiveness. He was a stark contrast to Kaelen's measured authority, a dangerous, unpredictable force. "Jax has been pushing our borders," Lena reported during a tense pack meeting, her voice grim, her golden eyes narrowed with concern. His patrols are ranging further bolder. They've been harassing our lone hunters, stealing kills. He's testing us, Alpha, pushing our patience." A low growl rumbled through the pack, a collective display of their simmering resentment, their loyalty to Kaelen and their territory. Kaelen's face was grim, his jaw tight, his amber eyes hardened with a cold, steely resolve. "He seeks a confrontation," Kaelen stated, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "He seeks to expand his territory, to usurp our authority. He underestimates us and our strength." Lyra felt a surge of fear, a primal alarm flaring within her. She was new to this world, new to its ancient conflicts and brutal realities. "Can't we negotiate?" Lyra asked, her voice tentative, still clinging to human diplomacy, to the possibility of peaceful resolution. "Avoid bloodshed? Perhaps a parley? A discussion of boundaries?" Lena scoffed, a cynical flick of her ear. "Jax doesn't negotiate, Luna. He conquers. He takes. He views diplomacy as weakness. His pack is larger, more aggressive. They revel in conflict. It is their way." Kaelen shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "Lena is right, Lyra. Jax respects only strength, only power. We cannot show weakness, but we will not initiate conflict. We will defend our territory. We will protect our own. And if he forces our hand, we will meet him with the full might of the Northern Ridge Pack." His voice was imbued with an undeniable authority, a fierce, protective resolve that resonated deeply with Lyra's own burgeoning loyalty to her new family. The tension in the pack escalated as the days passed. The trolls were doubled, defenses strengthened. Every wolf, from the oldest from the owl, elder to the youngest pup, seemed to feel the impending threat, the quiet apprehension that permeated the air. Lyra, though still grappling with her own transformation and her new role as Luna, found herself throwing herself into pack preparations, eager to contribute, to prove her worth, to be a true part of this formidable family. She helped organize supplies, prepared medical remedies, and even began to hone her own nascent wolf abilities, her senses sharper, her movements more fluid, her instincts more finely tuned. One day, while out on a solo patrol, Lyra, in her wolf form, ventured closer to the unmarked border between their territory and the Crescent Moon packs. The air grew heavy, charged with a strange, unpleasant scent, a cloying, metallic tang that spoke of aggression, of danger. Her hackles rose instinctively, a primal warning. She knew, with chilling certainty, that she was crossing into hostile territory. Suddenly, a massive, powerful wolf emerged from the shadows, its fur a mottled gray, its eyes burning with a cruel, calculating intelligence. It was Jax. He was even larger, more formidable than Kaelen, radiating an aura of raw, untamed brutality. He recognized her instantly, the scent of Kaelen's bond, of his Luna, unmistakable. A low, predatory growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of aggressive recognition, of dangerous intent. Lyra froze, her instincts screaming at her to run, to retreat, to warn her pack. But something, a flicker of defiance, a burgeoning confidence in her own power, held her rooted to the spot. She was the Luna. She would not back down, not now. Jax took a slow, deliberate step towards her, his eyes fixed on hers, a sneer twisting his powerful muzzle. "So?" he growled, his voice a low, guttural sound that seemed to mock her. "The Northern Ridge Alpha finally finds a mate. A human mate, no less. And a former human, at that. What a curious choice. Has Kaelen become so weak that he must seek his comfort from the human world? From a fragile, domesticated creature like you? His words, though in wolf form, resonated in her mind with a cruel, derisive mockery, a deliberate attempt to wound, to diminish. Lyra felt a surge of pure, unadulterated fury, a primal roar rising within her. He was insulting Kaelen. He was insulting her and her choice. She would not tolerate it. Her fur bristled, her posture shifting subtly, a silent declaration of defiance, of readiness to fight. You speak of weakness, Alpha Jax, Lyra growled back, her own voice, in wolf form, surprisingly strong, resonating with a newfound authority, a primal challenge that surprised even herself. But it is you who hides behind aggression, who seeks to conquer rather than lead. Kaelen chose me not for weakness, but for strength, for unity, for the future of our pack, and I will stand by him and by my pack against any who threaten us. Even a brute like you. Jax's eyes narrowed, a flash of genuine surprise, quickly replaced by a dangerous, predatory glint. He had clearly not expected such defiance, such courage from the former human mate. A low, menacing growl rumbled in his chest, a warning, a threat. Such spirit, he sneered, a cruel amusement in his eyes. A pity it will be wasted. Kaelen thinks he can protect you. He thinks he can hide you from the inevitable. But I will show him. I will show him what happens when a human tries to defy a true alpha's will. And when I take his territory, Luna, I will take you too. And you will learn to obey. With a sudden, explosive burst of speed, Jax lunged, his powerful jaws snapping, aiming for her throat. Lyra, reacting on pure instinct, years of repressed agility now unleashed, dodged swiftly, her body a blur. Of choco fur, narrowly avoiding his attack. She wasn't trained for this, not like Kaelen or Lena, but a primal, defensive instinct, a fierce will to survive, to protect her pack, surged through her, guiding her every move. The scent of pine and damp earth, mixed with the acrid tang of Jax's rage, filled her nostrils. She darted, weaved, using her smaller size and surprising speed to her advantage, avoiding his powerful lunges. She was not a fighter by nature. Not yet, but the wolf within her, fierce and protective, was learning, adapting, fighting for its life, for its alpha, for its pack. This was not just a skirmish. It was a test, a prelude to the war to come. And Lyra, the former human, was at the forefront, her destiny irrevocably intertwined with the wild, dangerous world she had so desperately tried to escape. She was no longer just the alpha's fated mate. She was the Luna, and she would fight for her pack, for her mate, for her new home, with every fiber of her being, embracing the wildness that now surged within her, transforming her utterly. Lyra's instincts, sharpened by her burgeoning wolf nature, guided her movements with an almost supernatural precision. She ducked under Jax's powerful lunge, feeling the wind of his snapping jaws barely miss her ear. Her new body, agile and responsive, moved with an unburdened fluidity, a stark contrast to her former human clumsiness. The raw power that hummed beneath her fur fueled her, enabling her to twist, turn, and weave through the dense undergrowth faster than Jax, for all his brute strength, could follow. She was smaller, yes, but her speed was an unexpected weapon, a new advantage she was only just discovering. Jax, enraged by her elusive movements and her unexpected defiance, roared, a guttural sound of pure, unadulterated fury that echoed through the ancient trees. He was clearly accustomed to his opponent's cowering, submitting to his overwhelming might. Lyra's resistance, her refusal to be cowed, only stoked his violent temper, making him more reckless, more determined to overpower her. He lunged again, this time with a desperate, all-consuming ferocity, aiming to pin her to the ground, to end the skirmish quickly, brutally. But Lyra was quicker. Just as he lunged, she darted to the side, then used her powerful hind legs to launch herself, twisting in midair to land a glancing, yet deliberate, blow to his flank with her newly strengthened paws. A sharp, stinging impact that surprised them both. It wasn't cool. Enough to wound him. Not significantly, but it was enough to throw him off balance, to send him stumbling forward, disrupting his attack. Jax let out a frustrated snarl, his amber eyes burning with a dangerous mix of anger and grudging respect. He clearly hadn't anticipated such a spirited defense from Kaelen's human mate. He lunged again, a more calculated attack this time, aiming to cut off her escape, to corner her. Lyra, anticipating his move, twisted away, her mind racing, her wolf instincts screaming for her to retreat, to warn her pack. She was no match for him in a direct fight. Not yet. Her purpose was not to defeat him, but to gather information, to survive, to report back. This was not a fight she could win, but it was a fight she would endure. Suddenly, a powerful, commanding howl ripped through the air, echoing through the forest, vibrating with undeniable authority. It was Kaelen's howl. A warning. A command. A furious challenge. It cut through the tension, startling both Lyra and Jax, momentarily freezing them in their tracks. Jax's head snapped up, his ears swiveling towards the sound. A flicker of something that resembled caution, perhaps even a hint of fear, crossed his features. Kaelen's presence, his raw power, was unmistakable. Before Jax could react, a blur of dark fur erupted from the trees, moving with impossible speed. A powerful dark shadow that seemed to consume the very air. Kaelen, in his full wolf form, radiating an aura of barely contained fury, a terrifying, formidable force of nature. His amber eyes, burning with a cold, lethal intensity, were fixed on Jax, a silent promise of swift, brutal retribution. He was furious. Furious that his mate, his Luna, had been threatened, attacked, dared to be touched by a rival alpha. Kaelen landed between Lyra and Jax with a thud that seemed to shake the very earth, his massive body a formidable shield. He faced Jax, his fur bristling, a low, dangerous growl rumbling deep in his chest, a sound that spoke of ancient power, of absolute dominance, of an alpha defending his territory, his mate. Jax, for all his arrogance and aggression, visibly tensed. He knew Kaelen's strength, his reputation. The two alphas stood nose to nose, their powerful forms radiating raw, untamed power, a silent, volatile standoff that threatened to explode into a devastating, bloody conflict. The air crackled with their combined intensity, thick with unspoken threats, with primal defiance. "You trespass, Alpha Jax," Kaelen snarled, his voice a low, guttural growl, vibrating with barely contained rage. "You attack my Luna. You threaten my pack. You have crossed a line that will not be uncrossed." Jax sneered, his eyes still holding a flicker of defiance, though his posture seemed subtly less aggressive, a grudging acknowledgement of Kaelen's superior power, of his rightful place. "Your Luna is a liability, Alpha Kaelen," he growled back, his voice thick with disdain. "A weak human, ill-suited to the wild, I was simply reminding her of her place, and of yours. This territory will soon be mine, and so will she." Kaelen's roar was deafening, a powerful explosion of raw, untamed fury that ripped through the air, shaking the very trees. He lunged, a blur of charcoal fur, moving with a speed and power that dwarfed Jax's own formidable might. The fight was brutal, swift, a whirlwind of snapping jaws, slashing claws, and powerful bodies colliding with bone-jarring force. The sounds of their struggle echoed through the ancient woods, a primal symphony of aggression and dominance. Lyra watched, mesmerized and terrified, as her mate, her alpha, fought with a fierce, unwavering protectiveness she had never witnessed before. Kaelen was a force of nature, driven by a primal need to defend his own, to protect his mate, to assert his dominance. He fought with a calculated precision, his movements economical yet devastatingly effective, anticipating Jax's every move, countering with an almost effortless power. It quickly became clear that Kaelen was the superior alpha. He moved with a speed and agility that Jax, for all his size, could not match. He dodged Jax's powerful attacks, countered with brutal efficiency, his jaws snapping, his claws raking, each blow precise and devastating. Jax, despite his initial aggression, began to falter, his movements becoming slower, more desperate, his roars turning into grunts of pain and frustration. Finally, with a powerful, bone-jarring lunge, Kaelen pinned Jax to the ground, his massive jaws clamped firmly around the other alpha's throat, a powerful, lethal grip. Jax lay beneath him, struggling, gasping for breath, his eyes wide with fear and desperate submission. He was defeated. Utterly, irrevocably defeated. Kaelen held him there for a long moment, his amber eyes burning with a fierce, triumphant fury, his body radiating an aura of absolute dominance, of a powerful alpha asserting his unquestioned authority. The message was clear. This was his territory. This was his mate, and any who dared to challenge him would face the ultimate consequences. Then, slowly, deliberately, Kaelen released Jax, but not before delivering a final, brutal snarl, a clear, unmistakable warning that resonated through the very forest. "You are warned, Alpha Jax," Kaelen growled, his voice guttural, laced with a cold, lethal promise. "You will not trespass on my territory again. You will not threaten my pack. And you will never, ever lay eyes on my Luna again. If you do, your life will be forfeit. Understand?" Jax, still gasping for breath, his body trembling with the aftershocks of Kaelen's overwhelming power, whimpered, a sound of submission, of profound defeat. He nodded, his eyes wide with fear, acknowledging Kaelen's absolute dominance, his unwavering authority. With a final, contemptuous glance, Kaelen turned his back on the defeated alpha, and slowly, deliberately, shifted back to his human form. He stood tall and powerful, his dark clothing clinging to his muscled frame, his amber eyes still burning with a fierce, protective intensity. He walked over to Lyra, his gaze softening as he reached her, a profound tenderness replacing the brutal fury that had consumed him moments before. "Are you hurt, Lyra?" Kaelen asked, his voice rough with concern, his large hands gently cupping her face, his thumbs stroking her fur, searching for any injury. "Did he touch you? Did he harm you?" The unspoken question in his eyes was clear. "If he did, I will end him." Lyra, still trembling from the adrenaline of the confrontation, slowly shifted back to her human form, her clothes materializing on her body, a testament to her increasing control over her new abilities. "No," she whispered, her voice shaky but firm, shaking her head. "I'm fine, Kaelen. unharmed. You came, you saved me. Her eyes, still luminous with the afterglow of her wolf, met his, filled with a profound gratitude, a fierce, unwavering love. Kaelen pulled her into his embrace, holding her tightly against his powerful chest, his arms wrapping around her, his warmth a comforting anchor against the lingering chill of the confrontation. "You are my Luna," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion, his lips pressed against her hair. "And no one will ever harm you. I swear it." As they stood there, clasped in a tight embrace amidst the silent, ancient trees, the defeated figure of Jax melting back into the shadows, Lyra felt a profound sense of security, of belonging she had never known. The danger was real, the world was brutal, but she was no longer alone. She had Kaelen. She had the pack. And she had found a fierce, powerful strength within herself she never knew existed. The human Lyra, who had once recoiled from the wild, was gone, replaced by a Luna, a mate, a wolf, ready to face any challenge, to defend her new home, her new family, her unwavering love for her alpha. The path had been paved with heartache, with impossible choices, but now Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that she was exactly where she was meant to be, her destiny fully embraced, her heart finally whole, even as the echoes of her past lingered, a poignant reminder of the journey she had undertaken.